There's quite a few of them. This is one of the dead trees, clearly visible dead, no live leaves on them. And then it's another one. I'm going to turn this to the side. These two are the ones that are, distressed. Obviously, there's a lot of, impact on the bark. You can see there we're losing a lot of bark, a lot of dead limbs. There's still some live limbs, but they were recommended by the arborist to come out. So he's here today for the 4 trees, and then just, the limbing of the dead. I don't see a concern. I took some additional photos to show you of how many trees are in this area. This one back here is, it's the closest to the water, but there is still
How close are
a
we talking
distance.
to the water?
What you said, it's over 25 feet?
It's between 25 and 30 feet from the water.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big oak, but you can see there is a good amount of trees from here to the water. You can see all the impact, the damage on.
Gypsy moth damage?
Sure, and these trees that we're talking about right now are on our primary path down to the lake. We have lots of other dead oak trees that are outside of the 200-foot limit, but right now we want to take care of the trees that are presenting a current danger to us, and also the really big tree, that one. If that one comes down, the 2 tree guys that looked at it said, depending on which way it falls, it could have a lot of collateral damage on other healthy trees. There's a couple of really nice hickory trees there, which would be a shame to have them damaged. The bottom of that tree, you can't really see it on the picture, but the bottom of that tree is severely deteriorated.
I'd like to move that we have a consensus to agree to take down all 4 of those trees.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? All right.
All
Thank
set?
you.
What a selling job, Mr. Miller.
So Don, we'll send you a letter, and if we have your email address, we'll email it to you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming in.
All right, so we get back to the minutes, I guess.
Yes.
So we have the June 6th minutes. Do you have any comments about that?
On page 6, under the Hamilton Rod and Gun Club section,
Okay.
there's a note that says the commission is saying something, and they say that it's vegetated, not soil. I really didn't understand that. So maybe you could relook at it.
Okay. I can look at it too, and
The sentence didn't flow. It
Okay.
seemed like either it was vegetated or it was soil, but it.
right, or maybe bare soil. I mean, was what the
Yeah.
intent
I'll
might
have to
have
go
been.
back. That was
So
one of the ones that I wasn't at. I had to watch the meeting minutes, so I'll have to go back and look at it.
Okay.
So we want to hold off on that, the approval of that till we,
Well, they can make the change. It's only a wording change.
okay.
okay,
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes with that one change.
okay.
I'll second it.
It's not content change.
All in favor? June 18th?
On 618, under open space, there is one error, and that is, under open space, you indicated that Dave Barnacle is going to be the open space liaison.
Or trails.
The trails.
Oh,
liaison.
trails, okay.
Yeah, so if you make that change, I move that we approve of the minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. There was confusion in talking about the walls on Lakes Road. Because in 3 separate places you talked about, or we talked about, straight walls. And that isn't what we meant. What we meant was, what we were trying to do was not have vertical walls. So I think instead of saying straight, which implies a line, we were talking about the verticality of the walls, and we didn't want that. We wanted the walls to be canted. And then 2 weeks later, he came back and clearly indicated that that's what he wanted also, and he had picked out a subcontractor to do precisely that work. So I think just to make the minutes correct, if we indicate that instead of straight, we put vertical, that would
That's
clarify.
fine. Okay, there's that.
Thanks, David.
Um,
So do we have a motion to approve that with that change, or is there
Not
anything
yet.
else? Okay.
Under old business, page 3, at the very top, there is, in quotation marks only, it says brake will be replaced. And I think it should be brake will be, something will, it says brake will be broken. And I think it should be brake will be replaced. As a full sentence. Other than those slight wording changes, I would agree that the minutes are fine.
So you want to make a motion to approve?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve them with those minor changes.
I missed that meeting. I was in West Virginia, but I watched it on television, and I filed a Mullen. Can I vote for that now?
Yep.
Okay.
So are you seconding it?
I'll
also?
second it.
All right. All in favor? And August 20th, I wasn't here for that meeting.
August 20th, I just have one question, and maybe the board can answer it for me. Under the Allied proposal on page 9 of the minutes, you cited
Page
mosquito cakes in the drainage compartment. I don't know where that came from, and I don't know what they are.
I think Board of Health brought that up
They,
when they were
they
here.
requested
They
it.
did.
They
They
did.
requested
did.
it, yeah.
What is a mosquito cake?
It's a thing they throw into the storm drain, the catch basin, to kill the mosquitoes.
Larva.
So you don't have mosquitoes breeding in every catch basin in the town.
Okay.
There's 4 feet of water standing in there,
Yeah.
each one of them. That's a mosquito cake.
No changes. I make a
Was
motion
that
that we, make a motion that we approve the minutes as published.
I'll second that.
All in favor? And I am abstaining.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so
Well, we
that's
have a
minutes.
few more minutes, so
Yep.
I have a couple things for signature that we can get out of the way.
Great.
Just want to make sure you send them back my way, please. There are 2 requests for extensions. One is DEP file number 300-958, which is 197 Lead Mine Road. This is for the Trails Committee under the town of Sturbridge. 2 of the 3 bridges have been installed. The permit's expiring now. They'd like to have this extended to finish the other bridge. They're asking for a 3-year extension as it's not clear when the bridge will be put in.
Okay,
All right?
so we just vote to,
Yep,
Extend?
issue an extension. Yep.
all right, all in favor?
Just gonna pass these down for signature, if you can just send them back afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, we have another request for an extension, which we just received. This was one that we've talked about before. It's 226 Roy Road. This was for Josh Roy, who had the temporary driveway that was put in.
Right.
He came in and was discussing keeping it, so he sent in a letter. Said, after much thought, I've decided not to request a modification to the existing site plan. However, he is gonna ask for an extension to his permit because it's expiring now in order to remove the temporary driveway. He's in need of this extension as he currently doesn't have the resources to complete the work himself. To, instead of coming back for the permitting, to go forward with some type of driveway that we're looking for. He wanted to let us know what he's done to address some of the concerns about, fill and things next to the resource area. He's removed most of the boards that were stacked in the wetland area and will remove the rest in the days to come. He's also removed the green shed from where it sat and put it up against the roadway where the storage container used to sit. Most of the leftover construction debris has been removed from the property and will be completed very soon.
Okay, so is he restoring, once he removes the
Driveway?
the driveway, what's the plan for restoring that?
Well, yes, it doesn't clearly say he's going to restore it in this letter. This just came in today, so
It's just saying he's gonna remove it.
he's going to remove it. I think we can say that
All right with
you
that.
know, our understanding is that he will restore it to its previous condition.
Okay,
Okay, so I have this as a 1-year extension because it's just the removal of that temporary driveway.
So when's he planning on removing it?
I don't think he said.
He didn't say exactly when he was gonna remove it.
I think we need to weigh in on that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
right on the edge of the wetland. He can't just go in and remove those grindings and leave exposed soil. And he's probably gonna need to run some wattle, would probably be adequate. It's
Yeah.
perfectly flat. Run a line of wattle, and if he does it anytime soon, throw some sort of mulch or something on top of it, just to stabilize it. And I don't, he can plant.
Right, because he doesn't have his original sedimentation controls in place from when he did his project.
Yeah.
I mean, his permit will be extended, so any work is subject to having erosion controls and stuff
Okay.
like that. So I think we can tie it back to his permit.
Okay.
But I think that putting up a straw wattle is easy and inexpensive and can be done
Right.
for the duration of the work.
I'm also concerned that it's gonna continue to be used as a driveway and a parking space even without the material there. So,
Yeah, because he says it's other people that are using it,
right.
not just his family or him. Yeah, that's a good point, Steve.
I'm wondering if we should have some conditions that they add a tree or two, which really should have happened when they removed those trees
Do you,
in the first place. But we didn't, did we have anything in that, in the original order conditions?
no, there wasn't even anything about the temporary driveway.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, I know it was part of the discussion at the meeting.
right.
I mean, one thing we can do is have him run the erosion control along the wetland and then come across the front as a limit of work area. And then that way, nobody would go in and use that driveway.
But you're saying leave the erosion controls in there?
Until it's stabilized. You're saying that if it's grass, that he's still gonna use?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
worried about.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
So
you,
what are you thinking of, some kind of a planting across the front?
That's what I would like to see, and I think we should have specified that originally.
Yeah, because it has been used as a turnaround and a driveway.
Right.
Normally, we wouldn't do that, but there's a history here of people that he is not in control of using that. And they'll rut it up, and that's the death knell.
was it lawn originally?
There were trees there, but it was lawn,
Yeah.
as I
It was
remember
lawn and
it.
trees, and he needed to cut the trees down to make the corner with the piece of equipment, and we said, we hate to see that happen, but we appreciate the fact that he's kind of in a bind, so we worked with him
Yeah.
and said, cut the trees, but it's temporary, and you're gonna have to replace them.
Okay. So I don't know that we can just simply sign this without attaching some additional conditions to this, or can we?
Block it in some way.
Give him the extension to complete the work, but to come back and have a discussion
Yeah,
or work out what the restoration,
I like that.
Yeah, we've been working with him all along, so.
Right.
He
So what-
should appreciate the fact that we're gonna
So all in favor of the extension? All
the
right.
plan for the restoration
Yep.
as originally intended.
Yep. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area, and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of the legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you. We are at 6:15. Notice of intent, DEP number 300-1043, 68 Westwood Drive, relocation of an existing landscape wall. Owner N. Allen, represented by Lenny Jalbert. Landscape Evolution.
Good evening, Leonard Jalbert from Jalbert Engineering to represent the Allens for their property located on Westwood Drive. But before we proceed, I'd like to give you the certified abutters list and also the legal ad for the property in question.
Thank you.
This is an existing piece of property at Cedar Lake, which was previously ordered under an order of conditions, and a certificate of compliance was issued for the property here at Cedar Lake, which they constructed the house in this area here, and there's a garage in the left-hand corner way up near the street itself. What they're actually doing here is they've got a patio right here on this side, which is a stone patio. What they would like to do is extend the patio roughly 13 feet from here to there with a stone wall, which would be constructed here, and then fill in this area here to make it level. And the reason for it, they could have access from this area here around the side of the property, which they don't have presently because of the wall that goes right through here. The area of the stairs would be altered slightly, but they'll be still within the same area of the property. The wall itself would be going basically from 0 here to roughly 3 feet here, and then going around to this area here, then back down to 0 again there. What it is going to be a dry stone wall, which I have pictures to show you what the wall would look like, and then just filling it in for the patio itself in that area. So just looking at a typical picture, the wall itself would be basically a dry stone wall, which is basically like this, which comes here from 0, goes right across the front, and then with the patio back to the house. It's the same thing. It just goes from 0, just a dry stone wall. And then the
So there's no
area,
trees.
the area from here to the house would be flat, that's all. So it's basically a minor improvement to the property itself. The actual encroachment on the area, if you look at it from the 50-foot line setback, it goes into the 50-foot by maybe a few feet. But the wall itself going from the lake to the wall would be roughly
The 28 feet?
It'd be 28 feet from the lake to the wall would be roughly 31 feet on the left-hand side, and then at the closest point, it'd be roughly 29 feet. So it's all beyond the 25 foot. Right here would be, from here to here be roughly 31, and from here to here be roughly 29.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Lenny. We did do a site visit out here last week, so some of the commissioners did have the opportunity to visit the site and see it. I mean, it is an area that, we pulled out the old plans for when this was developed, I think in 2001. The area that they're currently using that they'd like to extend to have the wall include is an area that they were previously permitted to alter as part of their original project. So it's not an area of new disturbance within 50 feet of the resource area. You know, considering it's an area that they're already using as kind of a yard landscaped area, I wouldn't see that the inclusion of a wall to change this as being sloped to a straight area of use would be something that we're gonna be looking at as an impact to the resource area here. So I wouldn't anticipate any, you know, long-term concerns, impacts to resource area off of this. I think, obviously with anything, we'd condition it for construction, but I didn't know too about access for equipment to get back there, to be bringing material back there. I mean, it's a pretty tight site. Which way do you think they're gonna be accessing?
The access to it is only one possible way, and
That's
that's right
there.
here on that side of the house.
Okay, and it's,
This over here on this side here, if you look at it from this driveway, is a stone wall with a walkway coming in the back here, and this is a very steep slope in the back here.
Okay.
It's impossible to navigate
okay.
on that
Yeah, I
side.
mean, that's what I had assumed, but I think that's the best, you know, way to get back there. And we can look at, I mean, that's something that we can condition and work out with the contractor. I think it's, the filing said it's landscape evolution. He's done quite a few of these lake projects that South Shore with the access going down. He knows, he's familiar with what things to put in place, and we'd work all that out as part of that pre-construction meeting anyways. I think provided they restore that, I wouldn't see an impact with the change of that use there.
Okay. Anything else?
The only other thing I was gonna add is that the old DEP file number, the orders of conditions, need to get closed out. So they do need to submit a request for certificate of compliance for that.
I will submit that to you.
Okay, and then that doesn't mean, we'd like to get that soon, but this work doesn't overlap that, so there's no issue if the two were recorded at the same time.
Right.
Sometimes that's an issue on projects,
Yeah,
but
I'll just,
not here.
what I'll do is I'll submit a Form A, and
Yep.
in the process of submitting the Form A, I will use this plan right here to,
For the as-built.
to show as the
Great.
as-built.
Yep, perfect. I think
Okay.
that works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Eric, any?
How tall is the wall going to be? I'm sorry.
It's, well, basically, in this area right here, be about 3 feet high. It's basically as high as this table to make it.
Okay, I assumed it was going to be taller than that because of the grade, so 3
No,
feet, that's
no.
fine. Okay.
What's up?
Yep.
Steve?
There are friends and neighbors, next-door neighbors, so I'm going to recuse
There's-
myself.
This area here, from here down on this side is completely vacant. There's nothing on this side. This one here going in a northerly direction is the site that you just discussed was by Wagers, who owns that. So
Pretty steep.
it's pretty steep. This one here is Wages, and this one here is vacant. It's actually the old Kerboy property, which was off of that area. It's maybe, I think it's got about roughly 500 feet of frontage on the lake with no buildings, which is unique.
Can I just add one thing? Sorry. Lenny, someone actually did, a butter who received notification stopped in that owned this property over here, and she was questioning, I mean, not a wetland issue here, about the shed. Is that their shed? Because she noticed when she looked at the
The
plan.
shed is actually belongs to the Allens.
Okay.
And if they resolve it, they would have to maybe locate it closer to the house.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a
It's
wetland issue, but the person did ask.
There's no
and-
foundation or anything, it's just a matter of pushing
Yeah.
it
It is
over.
within the buffer zone, though, so I had a couple of questions about this, but
Right.
David, did you?
My only question is, we need to verify that the patio is always going to remain pervious.
No question about that.
To that end, I'd like one of the order of conditions to indicate
Okay.
that.
so that later, after we've approved it,
Yeah.
it can't come back and say, but all we did was put down flagstones,
No, it will be
thus
pervious.
making it impervious.
Right, no, it's pervious.
I'm done, Stephen.
All right, yeah, that was one of my questions. So Lenny, what is the, these green marks here?
That's the shrubbery and everything that's put in there along the along the front.
So this is existing, or this is going to be
No,
added?
that's gonna be new. That's just gonna be to mask the wall itself.
Oh.
From here, all the way through will be vegetation put through.
Excellent.
And that's by.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry, yeah, the detail shows what the,
Right.
Okay,
that one's better, I should have showed that one.
all right. So just shrubs, no new trees? These are existing trees here?
It's what, please?
Just the shrubs, these trees here are existing? Is that,
Everything's existing. No trees will be removed.
okay, no trees removed on the side either, where they're
No.
going to get
not-
access?
No,
Okay.
from, on that side of the property, there's no trees on that side of the property would be removed. There's
Okay.
nothing to be removed within the area
So
itself.
what are you planting in front of that?
The,
Read it from here.
the trees, if you look, if you move up one, do you have the upper layer? Which should,
Let me just.
there should be the others. There's a detail, there's the detail right there. If you look at the detail on this side right here, we'll show you the vegetation and everything that's in there. with the
He's asking
delineation.
what is being planted?
Oh, it says it on there, that's what I was showing. Viburnum? 3 viburnums?
There's three right there, viburnum right there, and then there's there's another proposed, this is all done by the landscape architect that did this for them.
Okay,
You okay with that?
yeah.
Any comments from the audience?
One of the things we don't hear about often, Lenny, is when you're close to the water like that, one of the plants that does really, really well, and is a berry-bearing plant that both organisms as well as birds really like, is Cotoneasta. And it is available around some of the lakefront properties naturally, so it would fit in. But if the landscape architect has already made his determination,
He's did it already.
put that in the back of your hat.
I had nothing to do with it.
Should we add, if they decide to relocate the shed, we can add it as part of this permit, a
Yep.
condition? So Lenny, I was just suggesting maybe they add a condition in case they do decide to relocate the shed off the property boundary, that they have approval as part of this permit to do it.
Otherwise, they'd have to come
What,
back
now
in.
approval for what?
If they want to relocate that shed, it is on the property line.
Yeah,
We'll add it in as a condition for this permit. While they do this project, they can relocate it within the yard.
Okay.
Okay?
yep.
Disclosed location or something like that.
Okay.
So it's not next to the water.
And you had no response from the public.
Yep,
right?
no response from the public. Do I have a motion?
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
And next, I move that we approve the RDA, let me see, I'm sorry, the notice of intent file number 300-1038.
1043.
I'm sorry, where are we going here? 1043 for 68 Westwood Drive, which includes the previously discussed landscape wall.
And the conditions added.
And the conditions on the order conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
One
Okay.
abstention.
And you got, yep,
Oh, that's right.
all right,
Okay, thank
set,
you for
Lenny.
your time.
thanks.
Thanks, Lenny.
Lenny, you want this back?
I need them for the next meeting. They're pretty good.
So we're at 6:30, request for determination of applicability. This is continued from August 20th, 2019, 130 and 140 Fisk Hill Road,
Yep.
Gulas G. I
Yes.
know-
Yep, yes, sir.
Right, let me just finish. Ellsworth LLC, represented by EBT Environmental Consultants.
So they've asked for a continuation to our next meeting. It'll be continued to October 1st at 8:15. They're still kind of in the exploratory aspect of it right now. They're supposed to have someone come out to do some perk testing. They're still waiting for that. And the consultant is still kind of gathering data about the vernal pool. He does think he's going to come back in for our next meeting and maybe discuss the proposal for looking for egg masses in the spring. However, depending on what the results of the perk testing is, will kind of indicate where they might be looking to develop the property. So that was the update I was given today.
All in favor of the continuation?
And what is the date of that next meeting?
October 1st.
Oh, yes, there it is. Thank you.
All right, so we have a little bit of time before our next hearing.
Yes. So, early in the day, Mass DOT asked if they could come in at some point. I knew that we were at least having one, request for continuance. I didn't know if we were gonna have two, so I said if they wanted to come early, we might have time to have a discussion. We have 15 minutes before our next public hearing, so I think it's up to the commission if we wanna go over.
Do we want
Say
to?
yes.
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we okay? All right.
You be the
on
chair,
up.
say yes.
So in the packet of materials that you were provided with tonight, there's two documents in there for you, both of which have been previously provided to you. One is the letter from Mr. Reed, the consultant for Mass DOT, and then some of my correspondence back. So I guess we can start and then let them go through their proposal. I also did receive, and when you're ready, I can put those up, revised plans for the swale today too, so.
Well, good evening. For the record, Bill Clardy from Mass DOT, District 3.
Peter Reed from BSC Group.
And I want to thank the commission for allowing us to speak now. Peter has to come in from Boston, so I'm sure he appreciates it more than anyone that he drove in this evening. So just a kind of a brief summary. Peter had provided to Rebecca, it was back the August 30th, Peter provided Rebecca with I guess we're calling it a short-term plan, which you're looking at. Yeah, that's the plan. They're kind of an overview. We also provided some photographs, which there's a legend there. Can we see that?
Well, actually, if I can just jump
Sure,
in.
go ahead.
So on the 30th, we provided you the letter which outlined the short-term repairs, and it had photographs attached to it. And, I hope I haven't confused people, but on that, attached to that letter, we had this plan with all the photographs, which is in your packet there, okay? So each photograph has a number, and it's keyed to the plan. What I sent to the commission today was our construction plans to implement those short-term repairs. So you're seeing here, which is the sort of the general key plan of the entire area. But if you could just scroll down, Becky, to show the members. So then the sheet 2 is the rock swale with the area and check dams. And in fact, the commission has seen this plan back, I believe, in June. But since that time, if you could scroll to the third plan, we've added a detail about the plunge pool, which would be that was discussed on our site walk whenever that, July, I think it was, the site walk. So I just kind of wanted to show you everything that we've submitted, and maybe if could you go back to the first plan now, please? So this plan doesn't have the photographs cited with it. It's intended for the contractor, and you can see that the rock swale is shown, and then over to the right side we have the culvert crossing where we're going to repair the swale above it. We're going to remove sediment upstream, downstream of the culvert. We're going to put the plunge pool in immediately downstream of the culvert, and then basically right on the property line where the fence is, there's been a large amount of sediment that's accumulated. So that's one of the tasks that we would do as a short term. On the north side of the turnpike, there is a swale that has, the tail end of it going into the stream has been eroded, and so we would fix that with a similar treatment of rock. So that's just kind of the short terms that we're showing. I think Bill and I both would like to get some feedback on where we are and also talk primarily about the access to the rock swale over on the west side of the lake. We had identified 3 options in total, but one coming from Old Hamilton Road and coming down the way that we generally walk, and then across the north end of the lake. But there is a force main that runs under there that we're concerned with damaging. And then we're also concerned with, like, if we put mats in the lake, that there could be,
Well, we've had a number of discussions with the contractor. So as Peter indicated, we have 3 access options that we've looked at. So as Peter indicated, we've got the forced main that runs, forced sewer main that runs through this area. And the other part of it too, in talking with the contractor, he was concerned with all the material handling, bringing rock in, going across the northern part of the lake here. There'd be quite a bit of traffic with, including even dump trucks going across that area. And I think we were just concerned with crossing that area, even on mats. I just don't know that the potential impacts, I don't think it was, we kind of threw that option out because I think there was just a potential for doing some disruption to that part of the lake with just the movement of equipment. So we're back, I guess, to the other 2 options, which would be one across this property. I'm not sure what number that is, the property here.
it's in,
Have it.
Is that 123?
126?
yeah, well, there's 99 and 126, I don't know which.
I think that
which
one's
is which.
126.
So this is 126.
Yeah.
So that was the property that we accessed the northern part of the lake to do dredging during the last time that we were out there in the late winter, early spring. That does seem like, in discussions with the contractor, that's his favored access point. And I think the other benefit of that too is there would be less tree clearing. The tree clearing would be kind of limited to where the extension of that, or the new rock swale extension would be. The other alternative would be coming in straight from Westwood Drive through, but that impacts 2 properties. Apparently that's right on the property line. And plus we would have to remove more trees in this area in order to get to the location of the new stone treatment. In fact, Peter, I think you ran some numbers on the impact.
Yeah, it would be, so we're, we're calculating about 4,000 square feet of area of tree removal to get the rock swale in. And then if we were to pursue the option of coming in off the end of Westwood Drive, it basically doubles the amount of tree removal. So, as Bill said, the contractor's favoring coming across that property, but it would be when the ground's frozen, right? That's
Well, he had indicated that he would feel most comfortable when the soil was frozen, the ground was frozen, before he'd move equipment across that yard. That yard is very well manicured. I don't know, I'm sure folks from the area are aware of how well that owner keeps his property maintained. So that is also a consideration, is access across the lawn area.
And then, so Bill mentioned that they were out there, actually, they were out there yesterday.
As recently as yesterday,
With
yeah.
the contractor, and the material removal of the concrete became a discussion item, and the contractor suggested crushing it in place and looking at reuse of it. And so we looked into the DEP documents on that. They call it ABC, asphalt, brick, and cement. And there is quite a bit of literature on it, and they're saying that the preferred method for handling that material is to crush it in place, and that if it's done in accordance with their regulations, it's not considered hazardous waste, and that they recommend doing that because a lot of the disposal sites don't want it. So that's something that came up yesterday. We're still
Evaluating that, yeah.
but we wanted to mention it to you.
It'd be less material we'd have to import on site and recycle the existing concrete pad, because that needs to be broken up as part of the effort.
And it is all concrete, not asphalt in that location,
Well,
right?
Well, yeah, for those who were on the site walk, the concrete extends maybe another, I don't know, 100 feet further up north. And one thing I did want to mention is on that site walk, there was a very noticeable crack. And the question was, are we hopefully we're going up beyond that crack. So we had a second site visit and confirmed that we're going about, 20 or 30 feet above that location. But by doing this work, I'm saying offhand, there's going to be another, 50 feet of concrete swale left, and then it transitions into the asphalt section. And for those who may not know, we're calling this short-term repairs. There's also a discussion that's going on and that we had at Mass DOT back in July about long-term repairs. So we are actually working on getting additional survey of the swale extending, we think it's about 2,000 feet further west. And then also getting survey up in the gutter line of I-90 eastbound, and because there's a number of catch basins there, and then there's a number of pipes. And one question that had been asked were the camera work of those pipes coming down the slope. So did you want to share that?
Yeah, so this is the pipe that initially failed. And again, they're all of these pipe are of similar construction. They're all the corrugated metal pipes. And they're all similar. They're all installed in the mid-50s when the pipe was constructed. So this pipe is the original drain line that failed. We cambered this line immediately to the east and the next line to the east, and those have also failed. So as part of the longer term effort, we're going to be replacing these in their entirety, obviously with the different material. So as part of the long-term plan, we're looking at what we're going to do essentially at the end of these new pipes. So we're talking about it towards the toe of slope, putting in some sort of a riprap swale or stilling basins, and that's what Peter and his group are working on right now. But again, we're kind of jumping ahead. That's part of the longer term effort that we would be incorporating in with at this point a resurfacing project that's scheduled for I-90.
Yeah, and the reason that I segued into this was that talking about the rock swale work, we're going to be surveying the entire thing, and then we're going to be looking at solutions and coming up with options of what we think is best for the situation on that swale from an environmental impact standpoint, because it's very disruptive to go in and remove the trees all the way up for that 2,000 feet. So that's just something we really, until we get the survey completed, and actually I would prefer to have all the poison ivy gone to go back out there and come up with some sort of solution on that.
So it's my understanding you're just looking for feedback on this
Yes, exactly.
tonight. And Becky, do you have any comments?
I provided some initial comments that I think everybody's looked at. Besides those comments, just on what you've said, well, one thing before I forget, because I didn't write that down. This plan doesn't include, the swale that comes down here
Right.
shown in the first one. So I guess we just want to make sure the plan the contractor includes everything shown on the original plan, like where sediment's going to be removed on both those areas. I noticed that wasn't included there. So besides, like, my initial comments, which were a lot, were when are we going to start work and getting work plans in advance, and that's really important, having a good plan moving forward so we know when work is going to occur and who's going to be overseeing sediment removal in resource areas. You just mentioned the concrete reuse. I think we'd need to review that policy before I would recommend that policy is reviewed. I know, from reading some things before, obviously we can find that, but if you have it, some of these things can be reused once they go to a recycling facility. I know I've read stuff in the past, so I'm not familiar with crushing and leaving in place, but I think we'd have to examine, what potential impacts and is it allowed and whatnot before considering that use, because it can be hauled out of there,
Absolutely,
and
yeah,
properly
I think-
disposed
and
of.
we
if
have,
needed.
I can forward the information from
I think
DEP,
the guidance, yeah.
the
Okay.
guidance,
ABC
but then
guidance.
also, I hope to be able to track down some sample projects where it's been done, and I think that would
Okay.
help all of us
Yeah.
kind of get a feeling
Okay.
for, because we're not sure if we crush it, how much it'll generate, and so forth. So there's a
Okay.
number of
Dust
details.
and things like
Yeah,
that come
Right.
off. And,
Oh,
okay.
well, yeah, I
Well, we can
think,
talk about it, yeah.
yeah, that's great. I mean, I certainly share your concerns about it, so.
Okay, and then does this plan reflect that moving the crushed stone swale up that 40 to 50 feet? I just want to get confirmation on that. I can go back and look at the other ones, but
I think you're talking.
I think it does, but I think we just need to make sure that
You're
it's,
talking about extending it
Yep.
in a westerly,
Past that crack we talked
westerly
about.
direction.
so we'll just make sure there's confirmation for that.
And you're also planning on a plunge pool here too, or just the
No.
one that's here?
No, That would, that would just go straight, it would, the concrete that we leave in place at this point in time would then transition into the rock swale.
Okay.
And what we're calling for is 6 inches of crushed stone and 24 inches of stone for pipe ends is what they call it, which is relatively large stone. And at the end of the concrete, we're going to cut it and then put like a cap on the end of the swale so that it can't get undermined when the water's going in.
Okay.
That detail, if you wanted to scroll down, Rebecca, that detail is there.
Yeah, that's shown, the
That's showing it
lower,
going past that?
if you, the lower,
here.
yeah, that one right there is the
Yeah,
concrete.
that detail.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that,
And so we have, actually, so we have 2 check dams in there, which are shown just
Right.
above that, which kind of create a location for the water to be, the velocities to be
To be
dropped,
rested,
and
yeah.
infiltration and those kinds of things, and then it overtops, and so.
I guess the key question is how quickly can we get this work started?
Well, and I think that ties into the access issue. We could start the work now if we come straight in off, well, not now, but I mean, sooner, if we can come straight in off of the end of Westwood Drive. The concern that we just want to share is that there's more tree removal. And that there's also, I guess we would need to contact the 2 property owners.
There's
and-
two right, I think as your survey crew picked up, we're right on a property line.
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not sure, because I think that varies a little bit from what, like, the GIS shows. I think it shows the road going to the end, so I'm not sure. I
Well,
think
yeah,
from-
yeah, it's funny, the day that I came out here and taped that crack location, it was the first time I drove around to Westwood Drive, and it wasn't easy, I'll tell you. I got a little confused, me and another guy from my office, but we got to the end of the road, and then, there's sort of a cul-de-sac, and then there's there's a driveway that goes straight, and then there's the one that goes down, which is the one that the contractor would prefer to do. And the gentleman that I was with convinced me to drive into the end, because it looked kind of like private property there. But we went all the way to the end, and there were 2 vehicles parked against the fence, and there's a house up on the, to the left there. So, I mean, the road does tend to, looks officially like it stops, and then it's driveway, but I think it's actually public property
Yeah.
of some type. It's a little confusing. We did some deed research, and the plans that we got, it wasn't clear that it wasn't easements or,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Right, so I think for your question, I think, right, that aspect of this project is really dependent on how we decide to do it. It's dependent on if you can have permission from that property owner, because I thought when we last discussed it, it was kind of moving forward with trying to come in off the road. So I think that's an important question that needs to get answered, is if that property owner will give you permission to go through there, and then really need to look at what are the benefits for waiting, you know, or not waiting. You know, we're gonna lose more vegetation in there or not, so I think that's something you have to evaluate, but I think you really need to know from that property owner ASAP, because I think we were thinking from our last discussions, we're moving forward with Westwood. So now, the rest of the work, though, that's stuff that can occur now, and I think that those smaller things can and should move forward. Raul and I are out there today,
Well, this work is clearly less challenging here.
Oh, yeah.
This is the work
and
that we.
the water level here is down, so you can really see where all the sediment is along the fence line here. I think that if you can come in and start doing some of these other aspects now, we can just get those done before we get the fall rains, and I think that would be in the best interest. So I think we can phase this that way. My other one last comment, I promise for now. When you're talking about the long-term plans about cammering those pipes, we know they're failed, so we know we have sediment coming out of there now. I think we have to think about, if it's gonna be 3 years until that project happens, how are we gonna deal with the sediment washing down so we're not gonna have those cumulative impacts? And what we can do to address that kind of with maintenance or whatnot for the next couple of years. So it's something to consider, so.
Actually, can I ask commissioners, anyone want to comment on this?
Comment?
What kind of? Okay,
I have a couple.
okay, Steve.
It looked like on your detail that is, like, say, 6 minus or 8 minus, and it looks like the top surface was actually filled in. I mean, isn't the purpose of this to have large stone to kind of slow that water down a little bit?
Yes, right, yeah. So are you talking about the detail on the second sheet?
Right.
Okay, if we can look at that, and then I can
Becky, can you
understand.
scroll down a little bit?
I mean, if it's not 6 minus or whatever, then I'm okay.
Do you want me to zoom into
Oh, no,
anything?
the stone, so we have,
Yeah, we're looking at this right here.
Do you want me to zoom into that one?
that is, so it's crushed stone, that's 3/4 inch crushed stone for 6 inches. And then the stone for pipe ends is more on the order of 10 to 15 inch diameter stone.
Okay, I'm just curious. I mean,
Well, graphically, it shows smaller.
okay,
some
well, that's
smaller stuff.
important, because if that actually is filled in like that, then that doesn't slow the velocity down. I thought the purpose of this was to have,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I think we could, I can look to see if we have a better hatch. That's essentially what it is.
Okay, that's fine then. Okay, now, if you go back to the one that showed the lake,
Up at the top.
I just don't know if I want me to zoom in anywhere. It'd be easier to.
yeah, that's good right there. Refresh my memory, what's the distance right here to cross that piece of water?
We looked at that.
I think it's about 50 feet.
50 feet, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
And
so
not
a
only-
stringer is not going to help, and then lay mats on top of that. It's not.
Not only that, but there's a concrete wall here,
Yeah,
right,
you'd-
which I
there's a-
would think
there's a
would
gr-
be
there's a-
seriously compromised if you started driving
Yeah, there's a
equipment over.
great, there's a great change there, too.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's
Yeah.
been a while since I was over there. That's my only comment.
Because we were sort of leaning in that direction until we kind of took a better look with our contractor in terms of an access route.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah. David?
I have no comments, I'm waiting for Raul to talk about the abutter.
Can I just quickly add one more comment while he's reaching
Oh,
the mic? Sorry.
nope, you're cut
I don't know what repair paved swale means, and I know there's 2 that are going to be repaired, but one leads into the stream, and that area is pretty eroded on the bank. I think we need to come up with a plan for that, because I think if you just repave, it's gonna continue to deteriorate there. So I don't know if there's something we can do, maybe
Wait, where is this, Rebecca?
North, you're
on the
saying?
north side.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of falling, you know, the whole bank's kind of deteriorated there.
And
and-
a big additional chunk is falling into the water of asphalt.
Yeah. So pavement probably won't be the best
Right.
thing to do there. That's all.
Wait, my turn. Robert Ricard, 53 Beach Ave, Cedar Lake Association. So I had a couple of questions. Just while we're on the topic, on the north side with that concrete swale, there was a big, I went there today, and there was a big chunk of asphalt about that big that has since fallen into the water. So it just continues to erode. So is that plan outlined as to what you're doing on that side, or I don't see that
We're
anymore?
committed as a short-term repair to go up there and replace it. And so that one there will be replaced in a similar manner to this other rock swale with the crushed stone on the bottom and then the stone for pipe ends above it. Same thickness. And so the question would be, I mean, we were going to go back, I don't know, 30 feet with that and replace it in that same manner.
So what happens to the embankment along the edge of the water?
Right where it goes into the water?
Yeah, because that's where it's crumbling in, and it's eroding that bank away. And you could slow the water down, but it's still washing away, so I don't know if there's...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point, and
Well, the stone treatment is gonna break that energy right at the bank. So I think that's an added benefit of that stonework, so that it kind of, it prevents that energy, that erosive energy. So I think that's the other benefit of having that stone end treatment.
So I think we're going to need to see the detailed plan of that. We need to have the distance that that's going to cover and the plan for protecting that. I think that was in Becky's comments too, right?
There is the other paved swale on the other side too that goes into the fence, so that might be a beneficial area for that too,
Yeah.
considering it's all deteriorated there
Yeah.
and goes onto private property, so.
Right. Second question I have is on the rock swale that has been approved. I just, from a layman's term, I don't know what that looks like or means when it finally hits the lake. What is that, what does it look like
Are you
right
talking about
against the
this,
lake?
Raoul?
Is there a
Yeah.
concrete foundation there, or is there, what is that, what
No,
does
I
that
would-
look like?
I think that we want to, I was going to say, sort of bevel it into the bank of the lake so that it's as smooth a transition to the edge as possible. We don't want any kind of drop there.
Right, I don't know. I don't know what the right treatment is. I just was
Well, so.
curious.
so-
I know what it is now. It was a concrete kind of
Yep.
embankment which has crumbled away, and the
Yep.
concrete above
And-
it has crumbled away.
Yeah, and we're
but-
removing all of that.
Right.
So we would then, it would actually result in a lower surface coming in, so there wouldn't be any drop.
Okay. Is that?
It's shown on the second plan because we've got contours and so forth.
Okay. Third question I had is, you looked at those pipes on this side, which is the east side.
There and
right?
there.
These two.
There are also, did you camera the pipes on the west side as well? So you cameraed all the pipes?
This one here.
We, to date, we've went west, to one just to the west of the pipe that failed.
This one here.
Yeah, and that one seems to actually be intact, but as part of Peter's additional survey effort
We'll look at
down the road,
Yeah.
we're gonna look at the other drain lines.
Now, as far as access, the property owner at 126 has just sold his house as a brand-new owner. I got the name, that's about all I have right now. Becky and I talked about at least addressing that new resident firsthand. I know you guys have to notify him, that kind of stuff, but we'd like to at least let him know what the project is all about. So, you know, whether he'll let you even access or whether you can force him to have access, I don't know the rules, but I guess my secondary question with that is, if in the long term you're going to have access, going to have to go up that 2,000-foot swale, aren't you going to have to go up toward the end of Glendale to go up there anyway? I hear the issue on the trees, but You're gonna have excavators going up there in the long haul to replace that other one. So why not make the access point, the right access point for the entire side, both short and long term? To go through somebody's yard, to me is, I get that, you can visually see it's easier, and you can visually see it's not gonna be as many tree removals, but you're doing short term, and then you're gonna do long term again, and I think you're gonna have to go up Glendale for the higher part of that, no matter what. At least that's my,
I think it's a good point.
so, I don't know the tree impact. I get that more trees will have to come down. I don't want them to come down for conservation purposes, but for the repair purposes and the ease of repair and the proper repair, short and long term, I think we should evaluate the most efficient and the most productive entry point to have the equipment come in to do what has to be done.
Okay. I don't think,
Not my call, but.
yep, I don't think we're prepared to vote on that tonight, so, yeah, so, thank you.
It's a good
Rob.
idea.
Yeah,
We hate to see trees come down.
If the council agrees, we'll at least try and connect with the new resident and let them know that work, there's gonna be work going on there. Pretty significant work going on there in his backyard. I think, the realtor who sold the house was supposed to let them know, at least that's what the former owner told me, but I don't know that for sure. Okay.
so Raul, are you gonna reach out to them, or what's gonna happen?
Yeah, Becky, you know I have to coordinate. I'm out of town the next couple of,
I can do it.
week and a
Okay.
half, but somebody needs to reach out to him. I have his name. I'm sure you guys have his contact information, or I can get it through the town.
Okay,
All right?
I'd like to,
And I think that was all I have right now.
okay, thanks, Raul.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to wrap this up at this point. So, did you get everything you needed from that?
Yeah, I think the discussion on access was very helpful, and to be able to share with both the short-term and the long-term plan with you, because we want all of it to be coordinated going forward.
So, ending this discussion, so think, obviously, gotta work out this side and access
Yep.
issues,
Yep.
but the other side, can we, set some dates in the near future to kind of get that work rolling? Because I think that can start now, and I think it would be beneficial to have that done sooner than later.
Well, I think some of the work, I'm sure our contractor's gonna wanna go in and do all the excavation work all at one time. But it would make sense probably from now, or, I know the drawdown is what, November 1st?
Yes.
November 1st. So, but the tree work, I don't think is really dependent upon necessarily drawdown. So that might be something we get out and flag those areas where the tree work is gonna be. I think that's probably some work that we could start,
Okay.
Well-
fairly soon in anticipation of the other work.
So, for the work over here, you're gonna have to have some type of machinery out here, right? You can have a small excavator, maybe, which, you might have to have them do this work at separate times anyways. So if maybe a small machine could be brought in on a different time than the other work, I mean, I think it'd be more beneficial to have a smaller one on that side anyways. Maybe that's something that can look into, and that's something that, it's a smaller scope, could be fit into a schedule coming up.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to, rather than trying to give you a short answer, I think we'd have to have that discussion with the contractor and see what his equipment is and what he feels would be best for that work.
And I think for that sediment removal, we definitely want that
Yeah, it's
before late fall.
Yep.
Out. I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be
It's
less
a-
impactful.
It's a lot less work, these areas clearly than the westerly swale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess too,
More straight.
in one of my comments, we want a staff member from BSC, a wetland scientist kind of on site overseeing the sediment removal.
We can.
We don't have a,
We can do that.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's,
I think what we're looking for is really to to bring the sediment, remove the sediment until we get back to the original hydric soil. I think that's realistic.
right, well, yeah,
Yeah.
someone should be on site while that's being done, so. That's why.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Raul.
Thanks.
All right, we're at 6:45. Notice of intent, DEP file number 300-1038. This is continued from August 20th. 314 The Trail, installation of a paved driveway to replace an existing gravel driveway, and the restoration of portions of the
Thank you.
gravel driveway. Jones N., represented by DC Engineering and Survey Incorporated.
Good evening.
Evening. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Jason Dubois from DC Engineering and Survey. So last month, we were at the hearing here, and the project 314, the trail, originally was to remove the gravel on this existing driveway, replace it with asphalt as shown, which did not change. And along the edge of the property line, right through here, this line here also represents the edge of the existing driveway. So the revised plan, there's a note just below here that says, no work is to be done over the property line now. So we're only focusing on the applicant's property 314. Again, the proposed driveway location here to be asphalt. It's currently gravel. This is the old limit on one side of the driveway that was gravel. This area is to become lumen seed, as well as in here. And this section here as well, that's currently gravel, is to become lumen seed, with this dash line here represents a crushed stone diaphragm for recharge for the asphalt runoff to come off the driveway, sheet flow into that, and recharge what it can. And also there is two kind of overgrown rhododendrons right in this area here that we're calling out that the applicant would like to remove at the same time. That's basically it.
Okay.
Becky?
All right, so, things that were raised last time was the work on the neighbor's property, which has been addressed, and we showed the limit of work at the property line. In addition, we needed the owner's signature for the notice of intent, which was submitted, so both those things are in. So here, most of the work is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We have some restoration within. We're paving an existing gravel driveway and then restoring other areas. He does have some infiltration for the driveway. So based off those things, it appears that these would meet, the permitting standards here. I wouldn't have any concerns with that for any long-term impacts associated with that. We're pretty far from the resource area. The conditions I would recommend are the ones for, pre-construction conditions that we typically have, and then conditions during work, setting up the sedimentation controls, keeping those in place, removal of materials off-site, and then just to make sure that the swale is maintained so that can function throughout the duration here, so.
Okay. Eric?
No questions.
I have
Steve?
a question. Okay, so you have this diaphragm here, but it's running perpendicular to the flow. So what's happening down here on the road? Because there's where the water's going to go, and is that going to be an issue? Because you're going to have quite an increase in the flow. The diaphragm might catch, I can't tell, I guess that's going to be level, but there's where the water's going to go. And
So basically, the street is higher. Everything's flowing into the property, so nothing's going to come out into the street. It's all gonna come down this way here. It's not flowing
I've
towards
got
the
it
street.
backwards. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
That was easy. Sorry about that.
Anything else?
No.
David?
No questions.
All right.
I'm still disappointed because I thought that we should maintain it as an unpaved driveway for exactly what Steve was just talking about. However, that's not the way it went.
Okay. And I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I'm not going to comment. Any comments from the public? Okay.
Hearing none,
Do I have a motion?
motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second it.
All in favor? All right. Do we have another motion to,
I'll make a motion that we approve file number, notice of intent file number 300-1038 as modified this evening
by Mr. Dubois Engineering Company.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Make sure that we include the date of the revisions, Jason.
All in favor? All right, I abstain. All set?
All right, thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
All right, we are now at 7 o'clock. Abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation, DEP file number 300-1037. This is also continued from August 20th, 2019, 650 and 680 Route 15, seeking approval of delineated resource areas on the subject parcels. Landing Rock LLC, represented by McClure Engineering.
Peter Engel from McClure Engineering. I believe we are awaiting peer review stuff. So.
Hi, I'm Robin Casiopo. I'm with GZA, and thank you to the commission for having us provide you the peer review services.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to? Would you want me to?
I don't know, how do you want to, you want to go back over the original plans or?
Just give a brief summary of.
Yeah, I'll just give a brief summary.
So basically, we delineated the perennial stream at 650, 680, Route 15, along with wetlands uphill in the back, associated with the perennial stream, I guess, and just looking for the approved ORAD of that delineation.
Okay.
So right, just to add, so we're looking at only a specific portion of the property that was requested by the applicant. So it's a very large property, but there's only a specific area that he's requesting to have reviewed right now. And Peter, I thought I printed an extra copy for you, so I'm gonna print one.
All right.
All right? Hopefully it works. Oh, you have it over there? Oh.
Does the section of the property that you did the assessment on, near the stream bed, spread out? Or is it pretty contained?
The stream, a little bit of both. A portion of it is the most narrow portion of the stream on the property, but that almost immediately goes into almost the widest portion of the stream on the property, so.
So what is the section we're dealing with?
So it's the old,
Yeah, so there's 4 sheets here that they're asking for this section, so it's a portion of both properties, which Route 15 is right here. This property, I forget if this is 680 or 650, I don't, it must be 650 because it's first, but it's a really big parcel. But they're only concerned with this area now, so that was one thing we had talked about, maybe going back to the applicant and, you know, depending on what the plans are, because we don't really know what the full plans for the site are, is that, you know, recommended that we look at everything right now or expand the scope a little bit, and they chose not to. So moving forward, if we do get some type of plan that has, you know, the potential that there's a buffer zone or a resource area that's gonna be impacted, kind of have to go back and relook at things. So we just wanted to kind of disclose that. We've talked about it a little bit before, but so we decided, you know, move forward exactly what they're asking for at this time. So that's what Robin's report covers.
Robin, do you want to go ahead and give us a summary?
Sure, yep.
Thanks.
So I went out on September 6th and looked at every flag within those 4 sheets. And there were only 3 flags that I couldn't find. Initially, I had called you, Becky, from the field, and saying, oh, you know, it seems like there's a bunch of flags missing. But my confusion was that some of the flags that were in the field aren't shown on the plans. And I can understand why, because it was some of the bank flags which had BVW, and that's what will be projecting the buffer, and not necessarily the bank. But in the report, I noted one area where I think it would be beneficial to show all the flags that are actually out there. I think it just paints a better overall picture of the site, but then there's also an area where an intermittent stream, a tributary to Lead Mine Brook enters the stream, and it's kind of tricky to tell, based on the plans, where the bank or mean annual high water line of Lead Mine Brook is. And on the plan, it's just shown as a straight line. So it's one of the items that
That's what my previous question was referring to, because that is the beginning of Lead Mine Brook, or a section there too.
the straight line on the plan?
Yeah.
Or
It's a,
between two of the flags?
That's what I thought.
it's a straight line.
Well, I think she's saying that's where, that's not where.
Haven't seen very many straight lines.
It was weird, I didn't understand that.
Unless a bulldozer made it, there's usually no straight lines.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
And in my 50 years of environmental stuff, I never saw a straight line anywhere.
No, I was expecting wiggles.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I feel that if it's the bank of the intermittent stream coming down, if that's shown, then maybe you can have a better idea of what's going on, so it doesn't look like it's just all BVW there. But that, I mean, that's up to the commission to decide if that's something you'd like to see on the plan. It's just something I wanted to point out going through my review. There was an area on sheet A3, and it's between,
You have this copy in
Yeah.
your packet, sorry. This is in your packet here. And you haven't seen it yet because it just came in, but it's in here and she's got the sheets in the back there that show the sheets. The last sheet is the one she's referring to, A3.
Okay.
It's the gray area
Gotcha.
with the big arrow to it.
so this is the area where I'm proposing a further investigation. I did notice just north of flag R 67, 68, and 69, you can kind of see in the topo lines just north where it looks a little level. There is a break there. You can tell where the toe of slope is. And I did notice hydrophytic vegetation and hydric soils. I augured down beyond 24 inches, and it was a very dark, mucky mineral all the way down, with some organics, buried organics, which is typical in a flooding, floodplain kind of area like this. And the groundwater elevation was right at the ground surface. So I do think that line can be expanded a bit north from the R flag series there. And then also when I was up in the forested wetland between flags 788 and 814A, as I was standing at 814A, I was looking for 788 and I started heading downhill, down slope, because that looked obvious. There was not even a micro topographic break or anything between the forested upland and this sloped swale heading down towards R68, 68. That would make me think that the wetland should end and draw a straight line right across to 788. I can see how it's tricky. It's forested. It's a lot of hemlock, very limited understory vegetation. So, you're going off soils, hydrology, which can be different depending on the time of year. But I did observe dark damp soils within that swale area, and saw the same fern species that I was seeing in the upgradient vegetated wetland, and hemlocks and red maples along the sides there.
Okay.
Sorry, Robin, you might have said, but do you think that there's a connection?
I think that there is,
It
yes.
connects those
Yeah.
wetlands?
Yep.
Okay.
That would be important.
Okay. So I guess what's the best way to move forward to have that delineated? Do we want to have their consultant go back out and do that, or would it make sense to have GZA flag that? I also think it's up to the applicant's representative too. I don't know what the best course is you guys flag it, you relook at it.
I'm
Or-
happy to also meet someone in the field too, to go over it together, talk it through and see what we can come up with together. I'm definitely open to that.
We've certainly done that.
Yep.
Recommend that on Darty
Yeah.
Road. We've had both parties go out.
So what is the applicant's opinion on this?
I'll have to talk to him.
Okay.
Okay, so we can figure that out and coordinate that, but I think the commission would be looking to have that included
Right.
based off of
Right.
Robin's recommendation.
Any of you want to comment on this, or?
I have kind of go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
He's the new guy. I'm not used to you being there, and you're so little.
Sign it.
I'm confused. You're talking about part of this project maybe going forward, and then we might have to go back. Is this a segmented project, or?
Well,
do
we don't know at this point in time, so that's why.
I mean,
That was the comment that was brought up in the original meeting that we had.
Basically, the owner is looking to permit a crossing of the perennial stream in that area where the old Howard Johnson was, so he wanted to keep work just in that area. We recommended extending that, but he did not want to spend the money to do that, so.
Right, so I think if he came back with just a crossing, it would be a segmented project. But I don't know if, for his planning purposes, seeing what resource areas are just in this area allows him to think if it's even feasible to do so. So, I mean, if he does come back and he files for just a crossing, then I think there are those segmentation concerns that would have to be considered. And there's other things with planning department, with land use, et cetera, that would have to be disclosed and looked at as well, because we know it's, residential right now. So there's some other things there too, but if, he's just asking for this area, what we've done in the past when people have asked for or excluded portions of properties, is when we do the ORAD, we would just say it's only for the approval of this specific area shown on these sheets.
Yeah, but if I may, before anybody goes and does anything on that site, and we're looking for an approval for a crossing across a perennial stream, we would have to look at alternatives. And we could not approve that crossing as for future construction unless we looked at the whole site, the whole plan, and we couldn't. We'd work with you and work with the applicant, but we can't put a stamp of approval on a crossing that later on would be used without the whole project. And this is DEP, this is federal, it's not just us. It's like, and segmented projects, for people that are listening, are not allowed.
Right.
We need to see the whole plan, the whole project before we can approve any piece of it. It's just some background information about segmented projects for the edification of others. So anyway, that's my problem with this, is how do we approve that as a crossing?
Well, we're not approving anything.
yeah, that's not part of
This
the.
is just the resource area delineation.
Right.
So we're not approving anything, and if they come back with a filing at that point in time, we can require, as part of their requirement for alternative analysis and riverfront and,
Okay.
habitat assessments. to
Okay, you
have that
confused me
additional
when you
review.
said come back.
Well,
Right, I'm
so for the purposes of this hearing, though, we're looking at whether or not we're going to approve the delineation. For the purposes of that, I think you're going to have to request a continuation to discuss with your client what you want to do. Right?
Right, but we'd be looking at whatever gets worked out with your approval and the fields be shown on a plan, and once that plan's received, we could approve that.
Right.
Yep.
Just for the resource area delineation.
And I think what we're doing here is agreeing that that has to be looked at further, right?
Yeah, I don't know that we need to vote on that, or.
I don't think, you don't need to
Yeah.
vote on that because that's not in front of us at this time. He's just asking for these four things. But it's good to disclose that and make it aware to the applicant, so.
Okay, so are you requesting a continuation then?
That I am.
Okay.
Go first.
Is that the next?
Is that
Yeah.
enough time
Yeah.
for you to
Sure.
get to the boss?
Yeah.
All in favor of the continuation? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks, Robin. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
All right, we are at 7:15. Request for determination of applicability. 11 Draper Woods Road, installation of an in-ground pool with concrete decking, including the removal of 3 trees. Jay Ventilulo, property owner.
That's why you look familiar.
What's that?
That's why you look
Yeah,
familiar.
you were there last week.
Saw you in your backyard.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Jenna Ventitulo. I live at 11 Draper Woods, and my husband and I are looking to put in a 14 by 28 in-ground pool with concrete decking and have 3 trees removed.
All right, thank you.
Right. All right, so this is a request for determination of applicability. I do have legal ad and a butter notification, so she has all that done. So we've been working with Jenna for this. This is, few of us have gone to the site. So this is an existing single-family house with yard. They're looking to install an in-ground pool. And when she called, we knew because of the Draper Woods subdivision that there was a wetland over there. So I pulled out the old plans with that kind of estimated where, you know, resource area boundary was delineated at that time. So kind of went back and then on her sketch, I just kind of put where, you had to ask me out in the field where that was. Based off of a review of that and the aerial photos and property boundaries, it appears that like the tree line is about 40 feet from the resource area edge. Therefore, her work is, you know, her pool will be outside of the 50-foot. So, you know, moving forward with, you know, it's similar to other projects, we've permitted in-ground pools outside of the 50-foot buffer in an existing developed yard, can move forward through the RDA process with a determination. So we've had some discussions when we went out there about fill being used on site or fill being removed. The contractor confirmed that he's going to remove that off site. Most of kind of what we're looking at here, we've got, you know, a steep slope coming down. Be looking at kind of working with the contractor, you know, site access, implementation of sedimentation controls on site, you know, kind of more of those basic things. You know, one of the things we add in there for our permits is no discharging of pool water into resource areas. We do have some language for that we put on our determination. So I think for this type of project, we could move forward with the determination process and issue the determination with conditions. So.
What's the reason for the tree removal?
One of the trees is rotting at the base.
do you want me to show you the
There's
pictures?
3
Yeah, can
trees
you-
that are right along, our property line is actually much further back than our fence line. And so they're literally right along the fence.
Yeah, so that's the one that's rotting.
It's hard to see in the,
Right.
Yeah, I can see it better in here. But then there's these 2 tall pines right at the edge here of the fence.
Okay.
There is a good amount, we noticed when we were out there, of trees, mature trees right on the other side of these pines too, that do provide shade on the wetland.
And it looks like there's additional pines
yes,
adjacent to that.
further back, yeah.
And so the one tree is distressed. What about these 2 trees? They're,
Well, we're gonna have to pay $1,800 to have a crane come in to pull them out, so I said instead of having all these pine needles dropped into a new pool, I'd rather have a couple of the ones that are close to the pool removed, so.
okay. Becky, are you all set?
I'm all set, yep.
Eric?
No questions.
I'm all set.
Steve?
No
David?
questions.
Okay.
I'm disturbed by taking down those 2 trees.
Yeah, I am too, for just, you know, if the trees are healthy.
Well, the one pictured in there is not healthy.
No, understood, yeah.
I mean, we're willing to do a 2-for-1 if we could push back further on our property line, not right along the fence line. If that would be,
Well, I mean, that's pretty heavily treed right now. It's just a matter of, you know, replacing healthy trees of that size is not, you know, feasible thing. That's,
Well, they're also canopy trees.
right? Okay,
And looking on the site, there's plenty of trees there from the canopy. I'm not concerned about,
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about the wetland when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm not in.
okay. Any comments from the public? All right, do I have a motion to
I'll
close?
make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And I'll make a motion also that we approve the request for determination of applicability for 11 Draper Woods Road, installation of an in-ground pool with the plan as provided, and the inclusion of 3 trees to be removed with no replacement.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, quick. Becky, could you put the plan back up? I know we talked about possibly leveling off part of the yard that
Right.
you were, is that what that blue line?
I don't know what that blue line is, to be
No.
honest with you. I didn't put that
Oh, it's
there.
approximate 50-foot
Yeah.
buffer.
Yeah, you asked me to add that on there, so I.
Okay.
But
You know,
we
I-
do have, we've been in contact with Babes Landscaping. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with them. And we've gotten estimates for retaining wall, a short retaining wall on the far end, if we need that for erosion control, so. It's already in the works.
Would it be
If-
appropriate if you put in that retaining wall to have some berry bushes on top of the retaining wall?
Some what bushes?
Berry.
Some,
Oh, like blueberries or, yeah.
or something, you know, a winterberry, or you could even put them in front of the wall as a
Okay,
decorative piece,
okay.
and that would help
With the erosion?
offset, yeah.
Okay.
One other thing, just to be clear, the soil removal is going to be live loaded. There'll be no stockpiling. Is that correct?
That's correct. I
Okay.
sent an estimate to have all the fill removed, and
Okay.
taken off site.
Okay. So we have,
Understand live loading?
I don't think there's anywhere to stockpile on site anyways,
No.
really,
No.
so I think,
There's no
that-
place.
yeah.
all in favor?
Okay,
Yeah,
so this
so-
is so this is a determination, so you have to vote on, I'm gonna recommend that it's a 2B, that we're not confirming resource area
Yes.
determinations. 5, it's subject
5.
to the local bylaw, and a negative number 3, it's within the buffer zone, but won't alter an area subject to the act, therefore doesn't require the filing of a notice of intent, but we are gonna add the conditions, so.
Right, it's 3 and 5 plus conditions.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that like the hay wattles you were talking about, like that sort of?
Yeah, we'll give you a letter with everything kind of outlined in it, and.
Okay.
So one more time, all in favor?
Sorry.
All right.
Okay, just gonna ask that you sign the determination for me, please. You're all set, Jenna.
All right,
So
great, thanks.
We'll draft this up, it'll probably be ready tomorrow afternoon, if not the next day.
Okay.
We usually send it certified mail unless you wanna pick it up.
That's all right.
We'll mail it, okay.
That's okay.
All right, thanks, have a good one.
Okay.
So we have people here for 158 Lake Road and 30 River Road, so.
On 158 Lake Road?
Sure.
Sure. Please introduce yourselves, gentlemen.
My name is Chris Hill. I am the co-executor of Victor E. Hill IV's estate, which is the owner of the property.
Okay.
I'm Bernie Gothier, owner of B&R Tree Service Company. Did the tree work there without a permit.
Right, I'll just provide a quick summary for everybody.
Sure.
I received a phone call of tree removal. Resident was asking if we'd issued a permit on this property. I didn't have a recollection of it. I went back because our determinations are good for 3 years to see if there was something that came through for permitting prior to my starting. Thank you. Didn't have anything, so I went out to the site, met the property owner out there, and observed that the trees had already been removed, asked about it. I was informed that he was under the impression that the contractor had received the permits for it. Observed about 22 trees, I think.
I can give a plan to everybody if they want.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yep, I think that'd be helpful.
It's a hand-drawn plan because it was last.
That's okay. I think it's just good
okay.
for discussion. I have some photos, so, work within, this work would have required a filing. I kind of went over that, depending on the extent of the work, what type of filing we were looking
Steve and
at.
I can share too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have additional photos if you have the ability to use a thumb drive, but I also have paper copies. These predate the removals.
Predate that?
Yeah,
Okay.
in a couple
Yeah, I
other
think-
places.
Yeah, I think that,
You tie to specific sections.
okay.
One is
Yeah.
this tree on the side, and the others are 3 different views of the trees here.
Okay.
And if you need the digital copy, they're right there.
Okay.
This is the one you were telling me about.
Sorry, so you're right, when I had gone out there, he had indicated that some of these trees had been deceased, and he said he had photographs of it. I said that would be useful, dead trees or something that obviously is permitted. We have an expedited review process for that. We just still need to give approval because it's work, it's an activity within jurisdiction.
Right.
So we have a good amount of trees that were moved on the front, right on the lake, right on the bank, on the sides of the house, and then the rear of the house. So we issued an enforcement order at that, after discussing that, and asked they come to this meeting to kind of discuss moving forward. You've been provided with a copy of that enforcement order. It is in your packet. You've seen it in advance. I should pull that out.
We got some woodpeckers.
One thing, obviously we said to stop work. We didn't know, it's kind of steep on portions of that site. We don't have a canopy anymore. Are there things that are gonna erode a little bit? We might need to put something in place, even if it's some type of wattles or not. We can go out there together, look at that. We ask that that's done. I don't know if it's been done at this point. Certain areas obviously don't need something like that, but some areas might benefit from it. We also asked or ordered that we have a certified arborist index the trees removed so that we have a good idea of what was there. Species, size, was it alive or not? Can they tell from the stump? Things like that. And then we've asked to have a restoration plan developed to mitigate it for the unpermitted activities. And a notice of intent filed in the future with a restoration plan. So, do you want to go over this, which you submitted here, or?
Yeah, I put notes. The sizes of all the stumps are there. I put notes next to each tree and what their defects were. The majority of these trees were hemlock trees with decay and ant infestations, and there was no canopy left in them, very, very little, on a couple of them. One down at the water's edge was leaning over the dock, and if you look at that stump, the whole outside of the edge of that is ant infested. If you folks do end up making a trip out there. The main reason I pulled the trigger on this, we had a huge oak tree, 39 inches in diameter on one side, and they were butted up against each other. It was cracked. It was leaning over the neighbor's house, and it was leaning over his house. And the crane company called, said they had the crane available the next day. I wasn't ready. I said, yes, let's do it. And I'm the one to blame for that, for not getting you folks notified ahead of time. While we were there, of course, we utilized the crane and did the rest of the work. But the majority of the trees had decay in the canopies. You'll see in one of those pictures, the oak was over 50% decayed and full of deadwood. We do a lot of planning from here to Boston, and most of it has to do with getting some light into a property. Even people that like Hull Forest Products, when they do forest plans, they go in and they do a plan to eliminate the trees that are interfering with the healthy trees. Had that been done here, we maybe wouldn't have had to take so many trees that were in decline. But the biggest reason this was a rush thing and why we're here is this one huge 39-inch oak over the two homes. But we can certainly move forward if that's the case, and talk about what kind of bushes we can put in. Blueberry bushes was what we traditionally put around lakes. Usually low growing, stabilizes the ground. And you can also notice that the mountain laurel down on the water's edge is about 14 feet tall with no foliage underneath it at all, except for at the very top. And there's very few leaves there, evident of the lack of sunlight that this whole area gets. So there was a lot of decay going on because of that. If you start looking at the plants, you see why things happened there. But
I'd like to schedule a site visit. I think
Sure.
you know, we need to go out and take a look at it and see what, for ourselves.
Yeah, we went out
Or we
once.
could talk about, you know, what restoration needs to be done. But I'd also like, Ms. Becky suggested, you know, make sure that everything's stabilized and that we're not, so is everything removed, all the slash and?
Oh, yeah, everything's been
Oh, yeah.
removed. It was removed before I was there.
Right.
And that
Okay.
oak is impressive.
You saw it? Yeah, you saw,
That's impressive.
oh, did you go out there?
Yeah, we did a site visit there.
I mean, that thing was all rotted in the middle,
Yeah.
and
What, now, could I just get some clarification here?
sure,
You said the reason you were there was because of the oak,
that was the main focus of this job.
but that was not permitted.
Nothing was permitted.
Okay, so why you were there really is, it's nice to know maybe, but not really.
Well, if you can only imagine that we run an office of multiple crews, and
You know-
one day this came across.
I'm not trying to be rude.
Yeah.
Been there, done that, been listening to this for 30 years, I'll say.
Yeah.
So you're good. And I don't mean that. You know, just a point of, I just wanted to make sure, you said the reason you were there and you had the crane, that was also unpermitted. I just wanted to make sure everybody understands
I guess,
that.
you know, I had said this on the phone too, that we have people who call and say, we have a tree that we have to get down and,
Yeah.
you know, can you come out and look at it? And we do make that accommodation in those situations. We could have done that, but I just,
I've been before your board many times on these lakes and presented cutting plans, and I've always gotten along with you fine. And this one time, I made a decision running through the office. Somebody said something to me, I said, book it, because the crane came up. And Astro Crane has 21 cranes, but that one came up and we just did it. It was,
so.
it doesn't happen often, but it happened in this
Yeah.
case.
And I just want to ask, so the photos that were provided, those confirm some of these trees that were deceased
They confirmed the oak tree to the.
behind the house?
From the lake, if you're looking at the house, the oak tree that's 29-inch oak split, 50%
Yep.
defoliated.
Okay, so that's a photo.
That's a photo of
Yep.
looking up through that canopy. The hemlock trees are down in front of the house.
So that's the three.
There's 3 down around the
Two
staircase.
look like
there.
the, yeah, two are probably a bit closer to the water, but those are the two you're showing there. I was kind of looking at the
And
photo.
I can provide another one of the 2 that are right above the 50. I just don't have those with me.
And you'll see the signs in the stumps that are cut. You'll see all the black, and you'll see the ant infestation. You'll see the cracks in the wood.
So maybe you could provide a narrative on these. And I guess, in the commission, we asked a certified arborist to look at it. He's an arborist, he's also the person who did this. If you feel comfortable that he does that, I think you need to figure that out amongst yourselves at this point in time. And someone can look at it and kind of document that, and then, you know, if you're looking at a lot of dead trees that would have been permitted to be removed, what are we looking at for restoration would come after that, I think. That's
Well,
the way to move forward.
I mean, not to question your professional,
No, you
but I would feel uncomfortable having the person do it. You know, I would prefer a third party myself.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think it's a conflict, but I'm sure you're a professional. It's nothing personal.
I would agree, though.
It's a professional that went and cut down 30 trees without a permit, that's how.
So I didn't realize that you guys, all 3 of you were on site and saw this? Okay, so I haven't seen it, but, so are
And
you,
that's fine, I have no problem going back out, and taking a look at it.
well, are you prepared to talk about what you want for the restoration? So we can at least get them started?
No, that's a good question.
No?
I essentially went out there to see the havoc that was wreaked and not really, I mean, you know, we have a 2-to-1 bylaw, so to start off, we would expect a 2-to-1 for the trees that were cut down.
We're gonna need boots on the ground though, Steve, to look at it
That's-
again.
exactly.
Because there still is a lot of canopy that's up.
That's my first comment, is we should go back out. I wasn't really prepared
Okay.
to do that, and, you know, we can talk about shrubbery, we can talk about berry-bearing bushes, we can talk about
You're getting
trees.
better.
I mean, we've got trees here that were not dead, that were cut down. And, you know, and I don't see the 50-foot line or anything like that, but, yeah, we need to go back out there.
Okay, so that's the next step, I guess we'll plan for, should we do a special site visit just for that, or?
I would think.
Yeah,
It's gonna take a bit.
okay.
I'm good with this special site visit.
Would you
So,
like to
Becky-
do that with a independent arborist to,
What, in reality, I mean, we have, if a tree is dead, then we would have permitted that to be cut down.
Right.
If a tree is live, then we would seriously question whether or not we would let that get cut down.
Right.
So we've got a NOI after the fact for dead trees, which I would entertain. It was permittable, they just didn't do it. I mean, they didn't get the permit, but we would have permitted that. We need to think about those live trees that were cut down, and that's a whole nother.
right, and I think
All right.
this, you know, I was informed that some of these were dead, but on the site, you know, seeing the extent of tree removal, that's what the trigger for the enforcement order, and, you know, that type of removal would have required probably an NOI
Yep.
of live trees. So if there are some dead trees, I think once we can kind of confirm that that's the case
You're right.
by a review by somebody, then we can think about, are we still talking about some type of notice of intent or what the restoration would look like, and kind of move forward from there with the discussion at another meeting, so.
All right, so I think it'd be helpful to get a third party
Yep.
involved.
I mean, yes.
And have them maybe survey it first, and then we
Yeah, whatever.
have
we can do
have a
to
site
look at
visit after that.
A stump, yeah.
Okay?
And then we need to have another meeting, an agenda to talk about the follow-up, and not just letter for the records or NOIs or
Right.
whatever, but
Why wouldn't we wanna go out with the arborist?
Well, I was just thinking that may take some time. The arborist may want to have extended time. I'm fine with doing that too, but it's going to take a while to,
I think they should
To
look
look-
at it first.
yeah, I do too. Yeah, so,
Which maybe someone could look at it
And then maybe meet with
immediately,
the-
and then
meet
the
us on
site
site.
visit can happen next week still. So we just go from there and see
Yep.
and then we,
for that aspect.
and then we need this on the agenda for, after we do the site visit and hear from the arborist and all that, so.
Yep.
What would be a good, well, you figure out a good time to put that on the agenda.
Well, we can plan for it at our next meeting if we have what we need to.
I definitely
before
want an
that time.
update on it at that point, so,
Yeah. That sounds good.
okay.
Put that under enforcement.
So with
Yep.
the selection of an arborist to give them some guidance, would we want to handle that through the commission?
Yeah, so,
We're the ones that want it.
right.
I'm okay with deferring to Becky's recommendation, personally.
I just think sometimes so the reason we have an independent person do something, so that way it's not a conflict because they're working for you. So that's
Understand.
why sometimes we would select somebody, typically it's paid for by the applicant for a project or who does that. We do have some local ISA certified arborists that have been approved to do things in the past that we've used. If, you know, what we can do is I can give you a couple names of persons that we'd like to outreach and see what a quote would be and let you know, and you
That would
can
help.
okay that, and we can move forward that way. Does that sound okay?
That works for me.
I can immediately start that, and I know you're back now, but you live in Colorado, so the best way to reach you, email or,
Email, phone, either way.
Okay.
Email will probably be the fastest.
okay, I will,
If I know of the hearing in advance, I can attend that one as well.
So is the rest of the commission okay with Becky
Sure.
giving him a couple options and letting him select from that?
Sure.
Okay?
And tracking
Sounds good.
somebody down that's gonna be available and all that.
Yep.
and when we go out there, we can look at any need for stabilization too. I mean, it's not, you know, the roots weren't dug up and it's exposed soil, but, I mean, it's, you know, pretty steep and loose soil and, you know, not a lot of ground cover, so we'll take a
Right.
look at it. And something throwing up some wattles is not hard thing or expensive thing for people to do, so, yeah. But also too, I just want to add to, when we were out there, you said you guys aren't planning on doing any more site work right now, or building expansion or anything like that, maybe some interior renovations that.
The entry deck is deteriorating and is a life safety issue, but the footprint's being replaced pretty much as is, so. To be able to access the building, we would need to do that because the support column on the back corner is pretty much gone. So that would be the only thing that we're doing at this point.
Okay, so it's just a
It's just to the house itself, a repair to existing house.
column thing.
Only
Okay.
thing I've got in the works right now was to either plant something in that area or some trees along the edge of the property to screen some of the neighbors' summertime collections, the piles of pool toys and things.
All right, for now, until we have the site visit, yeah, no.
Oh, no, that's plans in the
Okay,
works.
okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
All right. 30 River Road?
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir, what are you here for?
Allen's, the 68 Westwood.
Oh, we already had that one.
Oh, you
Oh,
already did?
thank you. Yeah, so Lenny Jobber was here. We already reviewed that. We approved it. We'll issue a permit for that, so. Okay, sorry.
Sorry about that.
Save my time.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the 30 River Road? Bill, you want?
Alright, so, I guess, just to provide a quick summary here, the reason we've asked the property owner of 30 River Road to be here is the commission ordered a cease and desist. So since the issuance of that cease and desist, some additional concerns have been raised and observed. So, just to summarize what happened previously, there was a violation on site last winter, which resulted in the issuance of an enforcement order. Work occurred within riverfront area and jurisdictional buffer zone, which was not shown on the approved plan. The alteration within those areas resulted in degradation to riverfront area and the supporting buffer zone. So at that time, we weren't notified of that violation. Work continued and we were notified afterwards. So the result of that was an amended orders of conditions that we issued this spring. We worked out a restoration plan to mitigate for the additional impacts to resource area and buffer zone that were anticipated. Some of the conditions include development of a phased utility plan, a tree protection plan during work. The intent of the plans were to ensure that some of the remaining vegetation, the unaltered buffer zone and resource area wasn't impacted with construction activities as the project moved forward. Property owners and applicant were also asked to sign a certificate of understanding. It's one of the conditions that we have in there, saying that they've read it and understood it. That was done. The contractors have been doing that on site as well. So the enforcement order was released. Work was allowed to continue under the amended permit. As we know, it's a large project site. Not all of the project is within our jurisdiction. We have various buffer zones and resource areas, including riverfront and a couple different areas out there, and areas obviously that are outside our jurisdiction. So one of the recent monitoring reports that came in, there's a lot of photos. I tried to go through those. That's kind of my way of kind of seeing what's going on. What red flagged it to me was that ridge area. That's been an area of concern since, the project initiated. There was, excavators up there digging. So I immediately red flagged it. I get all these reports via email back to the environmental monitor, and, the property owner and some other folks on the project team are copied on that too. So I had said, there was supposed to be a tree plan, work should be occurring out there. The arborist should be on site kind of overseeing that. At that point in time, I was scheduled to go out there the next day with the arborist, so I said, we'll look at it. Then there was a couple of delays with my site visit going out there, as, asked by the arborist at first that you had to delay the site visit, and then there was some construction in the front, so by the time I went out there, I went out to look at some tree removal as well. I went out there, saw the work that occurred up on the ridge area. A lot of, the utilities were covered and stump grindings over it. There were some areas with some additional excavation where we did see more exposed roots. Commission did obviously go out there as well, so you guys saw some of that stuff too. Some of the impacts to that buffer zone, some of the resource area that might have been filled in, like the tree roots, it's not something that we can see at this time. Obviously the trees are still healthy, and it's something that we might see an impact down the road, or at least, from my discussion with the arborist, some of these impacts, the additional alteration to buffer zone and riverfront area, we're not going to see that now. We'll see that kind of moving forward here in the spring and maybe in the following few years. Right, he had raised, when I was out there with the arborist, he raised some significant concerns for the vitality of the trees due to the construction activities. And so upon my leaving the site visit, I did contact the chair, as I usually do, and he said to issue a cease and desist and schedule a site visit, so that's what I did. Right after that, on September 3rd, a resident on Farquhar Road came in, Nick Berry came in tonight, came to the Conservation Department, said he had some concerns. His property is a pond. The outlet of the perennial stream that comes off the property outlets into this pond. He's had some concerns with silt entering his pond kind of over the duration of the project. Wasn't that bad at first, and maybe considered that, knew there was construction, and then, he's had some pretty significant siltation of the pond and has some photographs which he's provided. He's also said that he's gone to the property a couple of times and expressed his concerns, but thought maybe it was time to come in. So after that, I had kind of I made that aware to the project team and kind of asked that the wetland consultant look at downstream impacts, including the pond, and kind of see what we might be looking at. We knew that small dam on the duck pond breached for some unknown reason. We still don't know at this point what happened there. We know that sediment does travel from that. We were looking at that. We know that we've had some erosion concerns in the front portion. So we asked him to assess that. And when we had our site visit last week, he kind of, went over that. Didn't see anything obvious in the pond at that time. It wasn't right after a rain event, I don't think. Mentioned that obviously when dams do breach, we do have some, sediment that will go downstream, which actually, some sediment's not a bad thing because those streams have been starved over time from receiving sediment. But, it didn't really felt like we got a clear answer that he really looked at everything when we were out there. So I went back out last Friday and wanted to look at, the stream off property and on site. And when I went out there, there's a lot of sandy gravel material that's in there. I kind of dug down and there's a rich organic mucky layer underneath. It appears that it's a newer material. It's not the native material of the stream. There is a road there. Some small amounts could come in from that. But with what's happened on the project site, it seems like these resource areas probably have been impacted maybe by the dam removal and, sediment leaving the project site. So I went out there and I kind of document that, and I can show you the photographs. Mr. Halterman did come in yesterday, and I asked him to go back out there and take a look at it with me because I wanted confirmation from someone else that, what I was looking at, didn't appear to be the native material of that stream. So also, yesterday afternoon when I was leaving work, I went by there and noticed a lot of water coming out of the culvert under the road. So I stopped, I looked at it, I went onto the property, phoned Kim. It's her phone number that comes up first on there. Phil was there, we looked at it. There was the Pine Lake Dam. They had said that there was a lot of debris built up in there, and they removed it. So there was just a lot of water coming out there, kind of from unknown purposes. A lot of concern with a quick release of water downstream kind of indicated why those things could be of concern. They were indicated, their wetland consultant kind of informed them one time when he was on project site that they should kind of remove debris that builds up in there, any sticks, so that way maybe it doesn't create an additional dam there. So I was told that they're kind of moving under his guidance in doing that. It was a lot of water coming off, and we've had those concerns with sediment washing downstream. Something like that can cause some impacts downstream. Things like that, if there's a really big buildup, really you should be contacting us prior to doing any breaching. It wasn't obvious to me that a flashboard might have been removed. I had never really looked at the structure that well, so I don't know how it functions there, but it was unusual. So, I wanted to provide a summary so that way, we have a lot of different things to talk about for discussion here, but I think we need to, work with the property owner and find a way for him to move forward, but to also make sure that we are looking at and evaluating what kind of resource area impacts we have here. We have, we have some documentation that we have concerns downstream. We have the potential that he did alter more riverfront area and buffer zone that was anticipated, with vegetation, mostly trees, that, may not die in the future, but that's not seen right now. So maybe there's some way that we can evaluate that and reach an agreement that if some of the work that he occurred, which should have been done in a way under supervision as requested, results in additional impact, we have a confident way to move forward. Being that it's mid-September, it's important that the site is stabilized, either if it's temporary or ready to be permanently stabilized. I think that it's important that we find a way to address that too. And also, I just want to say too that I think that's important that there's been some other changes on the project site, that we have a way so that someone can kind of document that. If the engineer who either developed the plan, or if you have another engineer on site, we have a way to look on site that there's certain areas that make sure that what's happened out there is following the plan, and if not, we can have that go through an approval process if it's within our jurisdiction, especially considering if there's areas that weren't supposed to be paved or have some type of impervious surface on it that's feeding into stormwater areas, because we know that the stormwater has been designed for certain thresholds, and if things have changed, I'm not saying they have, but for that aspect, but I think that's important that we evaluate it, because all of those discharges do lead to the resource areas. So we want to make sure that that design stormwater system is functioning correctly.
Is that it?
That's it.
Take one,
Yeah.
section 2.
Do you want to go ahead and comment?
Well, my name is Philip Moreau, and I'm the property owner. My initial comment is simply that we have tried to follow the plan as drawn religiously. We have tried to stabilize areas as quickly as possible, and we've made, in my estimation, and as you may have seen and agreed to, stabilized a large percentage of the property. And with Mr. Halderman's visit and Rebecca's visit yesterday, we stabilized the other side of the bridge, what we call Village Circle, and I believe we now have almost the entire jurisdiction area under pretty heavy stabilization. And if you would like to go over any of the specific items that Rebecca mentioned, I'd be happy to add comment to them if it would be helpful. There were numerous comments of which I could have some input, but I can't respond to all those comments all at once because I don't have her notes. But if you'd like to deal with them singly, that's fine. I'm prepared to do that. But you all have seen the project in regards to, I will say one thing, the water flow yesterday that Rebecca noticed, I have no clue why that caused. We haven't touched the dam. We did clear some very bizarre material from the dam that I had 2 people come out today, the arborist and a landscape person, to try to identify these long undulating tentacles that were in the lake that were creating the blockage at the dam, and no one can identify them. The arborist has, I know it's...
It looked like a cactus to me.
I looked at them and I didn't even know if they were man-made or natural. There they are.
That's a root system.
Aquatic?
Aquatic.
Yeah.
That was my guess.
Yeah. That's what Becky said they were.
It's usually a muskrat or something else will chew those.
They do.
And then once they disconnect, they'll float.
Muskrat and beaver feed on that,
Yeah.
and most of that is pond lily.
Pond lily?
That's the root structure of the pond lily.
I see.
And you see where each one of those knobs is?
Yes.
That's where the stem of a pond lily will pop out of annually.
Interesting.
It's amazingly uniform.
Right. Well, that's why you would get the impression that it could have been man-made as
exactly.
opposed to natural made.
Yeah.
No, these things were medieval in my opinion, but I couldn't understand what they were, and we got up and saw that they were blocking the dam along with other minor twigs and stuff, and under the instruction of Scott Morrison, who unfortunately is not here tonight. He is on family vacation.
Yeah.
He notified the commission that he wouldn't be here tonight. But we removed those from the dam, and I will say that within 5-6 hours after you left, the flow returned much more to normal, and today it's entirely normal. And we sent the pictures to you earlier this afternoon.
Yeah.
As you could see for yourself, the unusual surge of water, I can't imagine what caused that, something upstream. We have not touched the dam in any way, shape, manner, or form since the beginning of the project.
I'll go back and check on the stem of that pond lily, just to verify it, but that would be my first guess. My second guess,
It's very fibrous.
I think that you are preparing for some kind of a Halloween special. And this is your...
That's a good idea.
Everyone will get a cane walking in.
They're only heavy when they're waterlogged.
You
They're
know,
very fibrous, and it was very bizarre.
if I could just add, I broke that with my hand. I didn't know what it was, so I was picking it up and it broke. So this isn't like a really strong tree branch or something. There had to have been something beyond these that were blocking the dam, because I think these would have broken, just washed down. Even a lot of these little limb pieces on them, I think if the water pressure was pushing on them in the dam, they would have collapsed. So I think there would have had to have been a lot more branches in there to really block that much water.
There wasn't an unusual amount of branches, and I believe we showed you the branches that had been removed from that day.
Well, there was a couple small branches there, but I didn't see, the amount of water coming out of there would be something like a beaver dam. You know what I mean? It would have been a lot of material. I just want to say I didn't see all that material. There was a couple small branches there with some leaves. I did see that, but I'm just saying that I didn't see that material. I just wanted to
Was the
fix
level
that.
of the pond significantly lower?
No, the level was very high, and now it's back to normal.
All right, so I think we can all agree we want to not have any more of these issues, and we want to get your project moving forward and, get this completed.
Thank you for that.
But we've been over this again and again, and we keep having these issues where stuff is happening on site that is not, was not approved ahead of time, and it should have been monitored as it was happening. And I was really concerned about the excavation that was done around those trees. I mean, obviously the trees are not going to survive something like that. So, I think your environmental monitor has to be involved when you're doing the site work to say, that's not a good idea because it's going to compromise additional trees.
Of the 13 sites that were up on the ridge, I think only the first 3 were disturbed.
Yeah. Wow.
And then it was stopped. Yeah. They have been rehabilitated. They've been replenished. The roots were trimmed under the arborist's direction.
Good.
The sites have been filled where there was a slight depression, and those 3 sites out of the 13 have been fully restored. The balance of the sites, another 13 minus 3 or 4, say 8 or 9 sites, were without fault. There was no disturbance. There was no tree damage. The tree damage to the roots were away from the ball of the tree, as you saw.
Right.
What we didn't.
And as to the viability of the trees, I think it's significant to note that our arborist rated the viability of every tree in the jurisdiction and submitted a document to that effect. And in Becky's words, they were all mostly 7s and 8s on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being viable. And so that was his conclusion in regards to walking the entire site, the jurisdiction, and looking at every tree. We also staked out at every site in jurisdiction where the new utilities are going. I believe we showed the commission that when you were there. Most of the runs are direct and straight into the center of a site, if not all of the runs. Like, honestly, none spring to mind that are along the edge of the site. So we've really tried to comply with what we agreed to in regards to putting the sites in a cattywampus nature and running the utilities directly to the center. And we are trying to comply as much as possible. We have hired a new environmental monitor who is rigorous.
Who's that, please?
It is.
Oh, you mean the one that you currently have, the Chris and Jonathan from LUT Design?
Yes.
Oh, it is still LUT Design?
Yes, they're still. We had another person reach out to Becky who erroneously reached out prematurely when the possibility was mentioned to him. We have no intention of hiring that person.
Do we still get environmental reports on a weekly basis?
Yes. Yeah.
And they're very thorough with lots of pictures. And I personally recently I've taken to touring the property with the environmental monitor myself. And there's two of them. There's Jonathan and there's Chris, I believe. Jonathan's comments to me personally are, this is a fantastic job site. You guys are doing everything you can to keep it neat and clean and in compliance. And so, give me something that I could put in my report to send in, because the job site was so pristine in his opinion. And you saw the job site yourself, you can make your own determination. We just want to get to permanent stabilization as quickly as possible. It's obvious now that we're not going to be able to complete the project for opening this fall as we had planned. That's primarily due to a delay in getting sewer parts for our wastewater treatment facility, for which we have a DEP permit already. With that delay, we're really mindful of trying to button the park up and really stabilize the hell out of it so that we can make it through the winter with all of our utilities in and the park stabilized, and hunker down and leave it alone and visit it in the spring and open it up.
And you know that stabilization was one of the things that we said, by all means, continue. You do not have, that our cease and desist did not include stabilization.
Yep.
And Rebecca noticed that from the time that she saw the tree roots that had been damaged by a careless excavation that was really not part of the plan, on the 4 to 6 trees that had tree root damage, out of the 62 trees on that ridge line, she commented that when she came back the next day or 2 or 3 post the cease and desist order, we had continued with stabilization and really will continue to try to stabilize everywhere possible. The area that you pointed out just yesterday is now fully stabilized.
Good.
And we sent Rebecca a picture of that. The little hole in the hay bales that Rebecca pointed out has now been fortified with another round of hay bales.
Right.
And
well, just as a point of fact, is that the plan, according to you yesterday, was to level off that area that ended up getting chewing the roots of those
It
trees.
was leveled off by fill, not necessarily by cut.
That was my
All I-
understanding.
Huh?
That was my understanding, that you were going to add
Yeah.
fill and it was not going to be
And
excavated.
that's what we did for the rest of the site. Those first 3 were done incorrectly, and they just,
Yeah,
it just happened, and it's been repaired, it's been remediated.
yeah. And we'll watch those trees.
Yep.
And we'll watch those trees, and I'll also, as I told our arborist, I'm willing to consider treating any hemlocks that may be damaged with that disease that the hemlocks get.
We'll be indulgent, yeah.
All right.
Will be indulgent, yeah.
Can I just want to comment on that
Sure.
vitality assessment from Joe?
Yep.
So Joe submitted a vitality assessment, which you have in your package. You've been provided with it ahead of time.
Yep.
What it doesn't include is how he assessed the trees. And after speaking with him after our site visit that he wasn't at, he said that that's the current health, not what's going to happen to the trees. So I just want to be clear. He pointed out in that assessment on there that most of the trees, like he said, I said were 7 or 8s, which wasn't what was conveyed to me when I was on the site with the arborist. So I just want to be clear that I don't know that I agree with that's the health of the trees moving forward. I also were kind of focusing on those 3 areas. I think the utilities went in all the way down the ridge, and we have riverfront area too where work occurred. So I think it's just not limited to those 3 sites. We don't know because, that utilities were put in. We don't know what it looked like, I guess. And it could be fine, but I just want to make sure that we're kind of looking at all the areas and maybe not just focusing on what was exposed when you went to the site visit and saw it. So, I mean, there's riverfront area, which riverfront is a resource area,
May I
different than a
ask what
buffer zone.
riverfront area you're referring to? I believe the lakefront area is the riverfront area?
No, it's off of the
Stream?
stream. Yeah, so there's the 2 areas in the property that have the riverfront area.
I see.
So, I don't remember all the names here because they've changed from the original ones, but when you go past Pine Lake, you go into that big area, which was cleared as well, there's that, Paul Revere maybe, but there's the wetland
Yogi
over on the
Square.
side,
Uh-huh.
Yogi Square there.
Uh-huh.
That area has a lot of riverfront and buffer zone too. That was part of the original kind of concern and part of the restoration plan. So there's some work that occurred there too, so.
And we, in our environmental monitor, notified of all the areas in which we were beginning work. And on July 19th, we notified of work beginning in Yogi Square and on the ridge. We have the
Right.
email.
Right, I believe that your report probably did indicate that, but it's your responsibility as the permit holder to make sure you're meeting all of your conditions.
Right.
So we have, I mean, it's not my responsibility as the agent to make sure every permit that we issue, every moment of their work, that they're following those. So if you have something that you're required to do, it's your obligation to do it. Did I maybe miss that in the photographs, that some work occurred out there when I was going through them? Maybe I did, but it's the property owner, permit holder's obligation to make sure that you meet your permit conditions.
I'm just trying to establish that we're not doing work without proper notice. That's what caused the problems early on in the project. I interpreted embankment restoration one way, and it wasn't clear. And for that, we've made restoration. We were shut down for several months. We worked through it together, and I'm very happy that we've solved that with the conclusion of planting over 300 trees, I believe, to rectify and try to restore and mitigate the situation. All I'm referring to now is simply that the work that we're doing in conjunction with the environmental monitor, we're trying to notify you as well as we possibly can, and we're trying to do it with directly as drawn on the plan.
Okay, that's what we're asking for. Eric?
And I honestly don't, I know of, I mean, I'll just, along the riverfront, we, on the plan, it showed, the only work that we did there was with regard to the electric distribution system, which I believe is part of the plan and has been approved. And that's all that we did. We really, in my opinion, clean that area up with old field panel box that was decrepit and in violation and a threat and a hazard that was still functioning, with transformers that have been taken down and are off the property now. And God knows if they had, actually they didn't have PCBs, but because they were all tested. But we've really tried to make strides on cleaning that area up without impact to the stream at all. We've mulched the heck out of it. It's knee deep and it's extremely stable. As I said when you were there, if you look at the banks that have been stabilized with those grindings, there's not one erosion gully. And I hate to think what it would have looked like if we hadn't done that, or if we had left the original plan in place along that area. The erosion that we had seen previously is very evident still.
All right. Before we discuss how we're going to move forward with this, do any of the commissioners want to comment on the list of items?
I just had a point of clarification. When you talked to the arborist about, so this is the current vitality, but not the viability. Did he give any?
Correct.
Did he give any opinion as to like how bad the viability is going to be on these?
When we were on site, he had concern that a lot of those trees probably won't survive. They were severely damaged by the construction work, so.
So the large majority.
That was my take on it, yes.
Yeah, that's what he
Across-
said.
yeah.
And how many trees is that?
Well, that's the ridge area, which is the 60 trees, but there are, where work occurred in other areas, just construction work throughout the project. So the 2 riverfront areas and other buffer zone areas, I don't have a total for that, so.
Okay.
We aren't seeing a lot of evidence of that now.
Steve, did
I find it incredulous that we can say, well, this tree may be damaged in the spring, for sure. We also noticed that there were, I think, 29 trees that were dead, that we didn't know were dead previously until this season when all the leaves came out except on these 29 trees that we earmarked to take out that we've just now ignored.
Yeah, and the part of that was a problem of when you took the trees out. First of all, they weren't permitted to be removed, and then you removed them at a time of year when you couldn't evaluate whether or not the trees that you were leaving were healthy. So
Yeah.
that's a whole nother problem. But Steve,
Yeah, I was just going to say, Phil, that this project has just been fraught with one thing after another that, it's come to our attention after the fact. And, that lowering of that lake, to me, is very disturbing. The whole situation. Becky saw the material. I saw the pictures of the material. That was not holding up that much water. Now, Becky, you went back to try to evaluate how far the lake had dropped.
I didn't go back today.
Okay.
The lake dropped? When?
No.
Well, the level of water here was lowered, right? I mean, you can see it was flooded and that water level lowered once.
I mean, that was a tremendous amount of water. That was several million gallons dropping.
This is the occurrence of yesterday?
Yes.
We have no idea why that would have happened.
It just all of a sudden started happening.
I didn't even notice it. Becky was the first one to notice it. No one on my staff noticed it.
She showed up and there was people at the dam.
No, the people came afterwards.
Oh, okay.
But they told me that they removed.
They removed those few sticks.
Which we have done every Monday per the environmental monitor's requests.
Yeah, that was a tremendous amount of water that was flowing down. I could hear it flowing, and it altered that stream below Farquhar. Is that Farquhar Road? River Road. I went there before that happened fortuitously because we just happened to be looking at in response to Nick. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. So, Mr. Iozo. Didn't mean to call you Nick. I mean to call you Phil. So Becky and I were out there in response to looking at, we looked at the stream and we took pictures of it, and there was, indication of some sedimentation and so on. It would make sense because you were seeing it and we saw it, and then later on that day, the flood coming down there totally filled the banks of the stream, and I don't know, I was there for an hour and it didn't slow down. And then I went back today and looked at it, and the stream was totally altered. Homogeneous bottom, no, the small riffle habitat that was there is no longer there. That was a huge event.
Of which I know nothing. I mean, honestly, what do you think I did?
Took some boards out of the dam, is what it looks
Absolutely
like.
not.
Well,
that is just not fair.
No, I'm just saying that's what normally
I'm telling you,
happens.
that's just wrong. I wouldn't do that in a million years.
I'm just saying, okay, I'm not accusing, I'm just,
Okay.
I mean, you asked me what would happen to cause that, and I'm saying, because I'm familiar with these kind of dams, I'm not accusing you of doing it, I'm just saying, what would cause that amount of water? Removing some boards. I'm not saying you did it, I'm just saying, you said what would cause that to happen, that's what would happen, that's, right. Anyway,
So-
easy, enough said, I'm not accusing you, Phil.
Man, I mean,
Mr. Moreau, I'm not accusing you,
that
I'm
was a
saying,
freak event over which we have no control, over which was not caused by anyone on my staff to anyone's knowledge whatsoever.
okay.
It was a total
All right.
unknown event, and
Okay.
it dissipated quickly. I don't believe it had anything to do with us clearing the small amount of debris in front of the dam as we do every Monday.
Thank you.
Yesterday was Monday.
Yep.
We've been doing that now for 5 or 6 weeks. So on Monday, we try to get the debris out of the dam. And
And I agree with you, and thank you for saying that the little bit of stuff would not have caused that flow. Thank you.
I'm not saying that it was like all of a sudden, the lake to me, when I looked at it, looked abnormally high when I looked at it yesterday afternoon while it was flowing. And then I looked at it this morning, as did you. The stream was returned back to normal. So the lake level, to me, appeared to be normal where it was previously. Event over.
Okay.
All right, so.
I wasn't accusing you of taking a board out. You asked me what would cause that, and I
right.
said taking a board out.
Let's,
Right?
thank you. All right, moving forward, we need to establish some kind of controls over release of large quantities of water. We know what happened, we witnessed it, we have pictures of it. Mr. Iozzo, would you like to have a chance to speak, or?
Yeah, do you want me to go?
Please.
Introduce yourself first, please, Nick.
Nick Iozzo, 72 Farquhar Road, right down the stream from Pine Resort. So yesterday, she stopped by and showed me that there was a large sum of water coming through. And a couple things that crossed my mind about that. Well, over the whole period of time, my pond probably varied about a foot within just running over the dam into the next pond. So the water height varied a lot with me too because of all that water coming down, and there's just, you guys said you saw it too, there's a lot. Not necessarily like a big deal to me. It's not really that important. I mean, it's water coming through. Whatever happened. But I did think of going down. I don't know what feeds his pond. Does that branch off of the Quinnebog River and a stream feeds his pond?
No,
Or-
there's a wetland, and then it's a stream to the lake, and then a stream to the old pond.
Because I was thinking, I was like, I took a ride down to the Quinnebog River because it's right down the street, thinking that maybe that was high and maybe there was a lot of water rushing through, but there didn't really seem to be that much water going down the Quinnebog River, just an average amount. So
It had
who
been
knows?
going backwards, Nick.
Yeah, so.
Yes.
So as far as any damage to your property or to,
I don't think so. Not yesterday. I mean, we had some sediment come down. It looked like, I have pictures of, what sand or silt, whatever you want to call it, on my lily pads. But, I mean, however important that is, I don't know.
I went down
I got various pictures from throughout
I
the
can
summer.
see
Yeah.
I can see the sedimentation in there.
Yeah, it's pretty turbid.
Yeah. And that was your observations too, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the,
So that's the earliest one there. That was from April 15th. I got the timestamp right in the corner.
the front water bodies are separate.
The first thing you see, they have there's a little cranberry bog, I was told, when I bought the house. I don't know, I don't think it's been functioning for years. I've never done anything with it. But yeah, that's like a little cranberry bog, and then behind it is my pond. So that's from my house facing that way.
So as far as the water level on your pond, you didn't see a significant change in that?
As from yesterday?
Yeah.
I mean, it rose, but, with the dam, it just
Cleared
went
out.
right back out, so it's not that big of a deal.
I drove by to look at his pond also, and the pollen layer was still there. There wasn't a ripple in it. I told Becky of the same. She went and saw it. I don't know what she saw, but that's what, that was yesterday.
Okay.
Right, it's a little different than a rain event on the site washing sediment down, which might have been part of the reason for some of these earlier
Right.
photos, so.
Okay.
I mean, Nick did provide.
Because it has cleared up significantly. I had gone over, I think the last time I was over was August 19th. And then.
That's when you and I spent about 2 hours.
Yeah. And then I had gone over, I think it was either a week or 2 weeks before that. Talked to his property manager. They said they were going to fix a few things and work on it, blah, blah, blah. Next rain event happened again, so I went back over, just trying to be a good neighbor. I don't, obviously they have a lot of construction going on. They have a little bit of sediment running down, but it just got to the point where it just seemed like it was a lot. And from the pictures, you can see that some of them were, that my pond was dyed very, very dark into a silt color. So went over and talked to him, and then after I talked to him, happened again, and then I came to the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So gentlemen, what are we going to do here? David, you had some.
I have a memorandum of understanding that I would like to put forward as an idea, because what we're talking about is the potential for future damage that is unknown. We don't have a way of knowing what kind of damage has already happened, and granted, Joe went in and did some trimming of the roots and then covered over the soil for those same trees. And so what I was considering was this memorandum of understanding.
We could have handed it over to Mr. Monroe.
Yeah, please. There you go, sir. Thanks, Eric. Just for your consideration. You can think about it. We can talk about it again later.
And what is the gist of it? I mean, I read it, but for the audience.
Yeah, could you summarize it for us briefly?
In summary, what I did was break it down into two sections, the two sections we've been talking about for the last hour, which is the trees which have some potential for showing damage a year from now, 2 years from now, depending upon what kind of upset they have suffered. And secondly, that the area downstream has had some impact, and we need to be able to make certain that those impacts get clarified. Because the Wetland Protection Act clearly indicates that no filling may take place of any stream. And it's not your fault. It took place as a result of activities that were taking place on your facility. So that unfortunately makes you liable for those activities. And it probably is not a major part of the cleanup, that cleanup downstream. But that depends upon you and what you want to do with it. And you can show it to Mr. Morrison and see what he has to say about it, and see what they have to say about it. And we're open for more discussion relative to it.
The cleanup downstream would be the stream that goes across the highway or River Road and onto Nick's property? Is that what we're really talking about?
Well, we're talking about the migration of significant amounts of sediment from your property to the neighboring property.
And how do you quantify that?
Well, as Becky mentioned, you went in and dug down across the street, right? And you found the...
Right, there's areas where it's like a thinner silt, but there's some accumulations behind like large stones where there's a good 5 inches or so of sandy material that could probably be easily kind of removed out of there. That's my observation.
In most cases, it's fairly obvious because you have 2 different colors of the material. For example, sandy gravel coming from your site and old muck from the leaves and the clay soil that was there naturally, which has been decomposing for more years than I've been around. That part of it is probably more of a manual operation, and we're not talking about significant amounts of labor, I don't imagine. But I personally, unlike Steve, have not been there and seen it.
I look at the creek, the stream almost every day for clarity, and I'm very comfortable that 95% of the time, except after a rain event, and only then after a short period that dissipates, that stream is flowing very clearly. And even as Rebecca saw yesterday with the large volume of water flowing out of the lake, it was all clear.
Coming out of Pine Lake was clear water at that point, yes.
And it comes down into our stream, not up through construction areas, and then through where the duck pond was. And we have a very good plan in place to rehabilitate that area that we haven't been able to implement. We would have implemented it by now, but for the cease and desist order. And we're prepared to implement it as soon as the order, I pray, is lifted tonight, to implement that plan with slowing down the velocity and keeping the silt on this side and collecting it where the duck pond was. For sure, as Mr. Halterman and I both acknowledged, the stream is a meandering stream that comes through that duck pond area. And it's going to meander on rain events or heavy water events. It's going to cut and eventually create maybe even oxbow lakes, who knows? But I think if we can get the right riprap and the right formation around where the dam was and get rid of that hideous structure, we can control what goes through further down and keep the sediment more in the duck pond area through the use of generous use of riprap.
I think the water during the flood was somewhat turbid, and I think you and I both know it came out of the duck pond, those meanders, because hours before that we were saying that's really at risk, those cut banks.
Yeah.
Very black soil.
And I applaud Nick's observation that water most likely was caused by some, and this is what I told Rebecca when she was there, that had to have been an upstream event. I mean, I just honestly don't know.
I didn't know there was enough stream or watershed up there to do that. Let's just say that that's a mystery.
Yeah.
And
Can I just ask Nick, are you at all concerned at this point, obviously knowing full well that if something does impact your property, it's not like you can't come back, but do you feel like something like this is necessary as the abutter?
Like, what do you mean? Just like the cleanup is necessary, or
Just having further remediations put in place and monitoring and stuff like that. Is it something that you have an active concern, especially given the relationship that you've built with Mr. Morrell?
I'm really not sure. I don't think so. But I mean, obviously I fish in my pond. I don't know really anything about this. That's why I came to you guys. I don't know.
I think it's important to get the landowner's opinion, but we also, as a body, we have to protect those wetlands, and so.
Filling is not permitted.
Right.
And I stood on the hill looking down at your pond, and there was certainly ripples when the mystery flood occurred. There were definitely ripples in your pond, and the water was turbid. It was difficult to see it in the photographs I took, but you could, when the light was a certain way on one of the pictures, you could see that there was a certain amount of turbidity, and it was all heading your way. And
All
the
right.
pond and the lake was, the stream was definitely modified from the habitat from when I was there that morning, and then went back, and then this morning after the flow stopped.
All right, so we know we have impacts from this. We have impacts from the work that was done around the trees. The question is, how do we move forward and get the cease and desist order lifted so that we can continue work, we can continue.
Well, I guess my question would be, we have a series of reasons as to why there was a cease and desist. What's the status of those? And if we are satisfied that those have been addressed, then and I think we're ready to lift that cease and desist. But Becky, I
They
guess.
provided, with what you have in your packet, they have the tree protection plan with the arborist. He's been out there, they developed a plan. They have the phased utility plan. So moving forward, it would appear that there's the right oversight to continue doing the work in those areas. I guess there's that question that maybe we don't know if there was additional impacts that might not be seen right now that you might want to look at in the future, and go from there. And if everything's fine, then everything's fine, and you move forward. But if there's that additional cumulative impact to riverfront and buffer zone that wasn't permitted, then maybe you have a pathway to resolve that, whether some type of additional restoration that's worked out or not. But maybe you can come to that understanding with your MOU here, so that way he can move forward and you have the confidence that it can be looked at in the future. I mean, this is an open permit. He has to do the restoration and monitoring of that. It's already outlined in his existing permit. The permit's going to stay open for the duration of 3 years at this point in time for that monitoring. You could add in, as Dave suggests here, that additional monitoring if you so chose to. So that could resolve your concern that you're not seeing what those impacts are yet.
Right.
But that's what the MOU is supposed to do. The MOU should take care of what's happening that we can't see, but now we should be able to lift the cease and desist so that you can go in and fix, excuse the language, but fix the damn dam.
No kidding.
Well, actually,
and if that means taking the damn dam out,
yeah.
well, 2 dams on it, but they're both DAM.
Yeah, so Scott Morrison actually said he couldn't do the dam removal until he got feedback from Natural Heritage because it's priority habitat. So under MESA, they actually did issue a letter today. They do have some like time restrictions out looking for. They sent it to Scott and myself, and I don't know if you were copied on the email.
No, I wasn't copied on it.
Yeah, it just came this afternoon. So I mean that was still a holdup that Scott
That was
did.
the only.
Yeah,
link
that
in
was the only
chain.
thing. So
And
that was
again-
something that was
again, trying to
unknown.
really notice,
Yeah.
full notice.
Yeah.
I-
So, right. So moving forward.
Well, I still have concerns about that, removing the concrete structure that's around the base of that enormous pine tree, because you're just undermining that. We're talking about where the dam was. I know.
Well, they did approve it last week, the last meeting, so
Yeah.
they did.
Okay. Well,
One thing that can be learned from yesterday's event and the day before's event perhaps, is that part of the plan that has been provided for the dam removal is that you're going to lower the level of the lake.
Yes.
To lower the level
I
of the
recall
lake,
that.
you're going to be running the water through exactly that same dam structure, which means the potential for further downstream siltation will be there. There has to be some sort of protection against that. So maybe, I don't know if you can put up a silk screen above the dam or something to help prevent the silt from being able to get through when you're lowering the water level in the lake. Because I understand lowering the water level in the lake. You'd like to be able to take the dam out when there is no water running through the duck pond. I mean, that
is the plan.
yeah.
Right, I think even Scott Morrison in his protocol that we looked at did say that you'd safely lower the level and then maybe do a little bypass pumping.
Mhm.
So I think
Right.
that
Exactly.
he can
Right.
get a plan in place that we can have those additional details discussed when that comes up to make sure that that's kind of avoided.
right, but what we worry about is,
And Scott has volunteered to be on site for that
Yeah.
entire work.
Yeah, that would be good. I think that would
yeah,
be
because your
necessary.
anticipation originally was it
Yeah, I
shouldn't
do.
take more than a day or so.
All right,
I
so,
think that's a little optimistic.
Yeah, well, we thought that too, but.
Yes. But Scott swears by it, but he's not doing the work. But I've been blessed with very competent contractors, from Chesla to Soper to Northwoods to Wagner Wood. These guys are really good, and we can get this job stabilized and done and start to heal the nation's wounds here if we can just, get it done. And trust me, we have, on any given day, we have 15 to 20 people working, 3 different crews working different sections of the park to get the utilities in. Nobody told me about these rocks.
Welcome to New England.
And I'm telling you, it makes for slow going, where I'm used to putting in 200 feet of sewer or water line sewer line, because that's what's deep, or the primary electric. I'm used to putting in,
This ain't Kansas.
300-400 feet a day. I'm lucky to get 150 feet. And I go back and see these guys, and they're still in the same place where they were. And I look over there, and there's this Volkswagen that looks like a rock. It's,
All right.
it's tough going. Tough going, but we're gonna get it. And as I estimated the other day, I think we're probably 50 to 60% done with all of our utilities in, and we bit off most of the hard parts.
all right,
So now we just have the flat parts.
so has the rest of the commission had a chance to review Dave's?
Right.
And do you have any questions or problems with this, or are in agreement?
I'm in agreement. Have you read it?
I've read it. I haven't fully
Well, we get to
digested it.
review it again too, after Phil and his team have
Yeah.
had a chance to review it.
I'm okay with having them review it. I'm okay with that.
So the question is, though, I think, one of the key parts of this is providing a surety bond to, in the event that substantial number of trees die in the next 3 years. We don't know what's going to happen with those trees. We don't know whether they're going to.
And what is the amount of the bond that you're requesting?
So it's 10,000 was what David suggested, and I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that.
For a typical forest cutting plan, we typically ask for a $5,000 surety bond. For road maintenance problems, this may crop up as a result of truck traffic on the roads, et cetera. And so I felt for a project that, we put a 3-year timeline on it also. For a project like this, I felt that $10,000 might be able to cover it. And in all reality, if you continue doing what you've been doing, you may not have to use any of it. Just keep cranking along and replace the trees as they die.
Yes, and as you may recall from the pictures, our landscaping budget at every park we've ever done has been very strong.
Right. But you will also notice in the memorandum of understanding that we want to hire an arborist, and we are volunteering to pay for that out of our funding. So there will be an independent person that will be looking at it with different eyes, so everything will be brand new.
And that's in this? Oh, that's refreshing, because there's, pardon the pun, a lot of water over the dam.
You got it.
And I think I applaud the commission's understanding that we need to move forward. This is going to be a good project for the town, and I don't know what you've seen of the project other than from the outside, but I know Steve and Rebecca came in one of our buildings. The place is going to be magnificent, and I know that that's collateral to the case in hand here, but we need to get the project done.
That's why I wrote this up.
Good.
Hoping that we can move in that direction.
I will review this, and so would the plan be that I review this and get back to you tomorrow and say it is okay as signed or as written, or I have one or two tweaks, and can we make those tweaks and not wait until the next meeting? Because every meeting, I've just lost 17 really critical days of work that was there.
Part of my goal tonight was to suggest that we open up the order of conditions again, take off the cease and desist. That would give you ample amount of room to start your work again. For taking down the dam, including in this.
Yes.
But that can't happen until we get the approval from
Well,
Natural.
they sent their letter today, and they did have time restrictions for whatever species is there.
Okay.
So,
We should be close on that.
right, I think it's wood turtle, so the concern is if they're in water while drawdown occurs, so they overwinter in perennial streams. So the concern, if you work while they're overwintering in water, there could be some impact. So I think they had wintering concern there, so.
Yeah, but the whole purpose is they draw down for maybe a week, and then they let it fill back up again.
Right.
Right, I don't think wood
Not
turtles
even a
are-
week. One day to a week.
Yeah.
Somewhere in
Well, no,
between.
But you're drawing down and then it has to fill back up again.
Right.
So it
you
takes
are
a certain
gonna
amount of
have
time.
Some period of time plus or minus.
You're talking about the stream, Becky?
The stream,
She's
they wouldn't really,
talking about
they wouldn't really
frog
overwinter
habitat.
in lakes.
Turtle habitat.
Right, she's talking about the stream, not the lake.
Right. They probably don't go that far upstream to Pine Lake, but it is mapped priority habitat.
But that's what I meant, so that the stream flow will be back to exactly where it is now. Should be.
Well, I think Natural Heritage is going to weigh in on the timing of that.
Right, they
I
did.
mean, they would have anyway,
Yeah.
regardless of our cease and desist or any of
Becky
that.
said they had.
They sent a letter today. I don't remember what the exact dates were, but this afternoon they sent
Right.
emailed a letter over,
So
so.
our removing the cease and desist isn't overriding what Natural Heritage has said.
Correct.
There's
Yeah.
still, right. I'm just saying that should not be a holdup for us removing
Correct.
the cease and desist.
All right, so let me just summarize. You're going to take this and review it and come back to Becky, hopefully in the next couple of days?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay. And,
This much I can handle in definitely a day.
okay,
I've lost a little of my lowering skills, but still can handle that one.
all right, so I think we have a proposal to lift the cease and desist. I would say we need to wrap this up, but I would be willing to lift it now with the understanding that we need to formalize and finalize this. Probably it's not going to happen until the next meeting officially, but.
Right, but that should not necessarily hold up the cease and desist. That's more of the long-term, how to deal with some of the issues that have happened.
Right.
And
And try to prevent we don't want you to come before us anymore, if at all possible, as I'm sure you don't want to be.
unless it's to give us.
So when he
you know,
comes back with revisions, who should I be giving that to if they're more than clerical revisions to this? I just want to make sure someone is on the board
Yeah, so,
reviews this,
all right,
because
give
I
it-
don't think that I should be approving it.
Yeah, give it to me.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so,
All in favor?
all in favor of removing the cease and desist?
Thank you very much. I generally appreciate it. I'll make one note. I think the one time where Nick had a significant event or saw the silt the worst was right at the period where we were connecting the catch basin to the stormwater drain, to the stormwater drain, to another stormwater drain, to the storm scepter, to the line that went out to the stream. And it was one of those, that line wasn't quite completed, and we had a rain event, and that was probably what precipitated that. And that whole line, that whole chain is now fully in place and has been in place for the last several weeks.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we're on it.
Yep.
As best we can.
Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your understanding and appreciate your help. And I hope the next time I see you, it's to say, here are the as-bills, the job is finished.
March is a good month.
March is pushing it a little bit. But you tell me what the weather's gonna be and how deep the frost is gonna go this winter, and I can tell you if
You
we
forget,
get.
it's New England, we can't do that.
Yes, I know.
We just hope there's frost.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in.
Have a good night.
You too.
Take care.
Good night, Nick, thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Oh, I thought this was my car keys.
Yeah. All right, Becky, what's next?
We have some more signatures. We have some old business and some new business, but certificates of compliance, 70 Westwood Drive. This one,
Take care, Jeff.
this one is the, pull all my stuff out. This one is for the DEP file number 300-766. So this was the original proposal for the property, which work wasn't completed. The property owner, this was a project we recently permitted. I have orders and conditions here for you to sign. Work was not completed, so this is an invalid. It's duplicate work, so they are required to take this off their deed prior to recording their new one for their permit.
Okay.
So this is an invalid, but it still has to go through this process of signature.
Okay.
Do you need to vote, or?
Yeah, consensus to do it.
Yeah,
Consensus, yeah.
do we have consensus to sign?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
The next one is DEP file number 300-088. It was alive then when this one came through. This is from 1985.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Becky.
So this is 218 Hemlock Path. This property owner is selling the property. He bought it with this outstanding order, didn't realize it was on a deed. I guess they didn't do as good of title searches back then. So this one, we had the original engineer was Lenny. So Lenny went back out there, looked at it, said it's in substantial compliance, so. Sorry, this is for, it was a raise and rebuild of a single family house, so.
So you reviewed it and agree?
Yeah, so Lenny went out there, I did a site visit too.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I recommend site.
I'll agree and,
Yeah, I agree.
all right.
I trust Lenny. Mr. Galvin.
I then have orders of conditions. So we had a couple projects that we approved at our last meeting that we approved with the request for revisions and plans to be submitted. So this one is for 300-1035. It's the 70 Westwood Drive. It's the project we approved. We did ask for a few revisions to that. There was some confusion with the engineer with what we wanted for the restoration plantings by the house. They had, it took a while to get the plan, and the plan was wrong. So I was waiting for the revised plan, which I received on Tuesday when we were out doing our site visits. So this one, I was incomplete until I received that plan. So it is now drafted. I did send it to you for review. I did not receive any comments.
So it was, I wasn't here when that was approved, right?
Correct.
So I can't sign it.
Well, you can, so I actually looked that up recently. You can because it's just procedural to sign it.
Right,
We have
okay.
enough people here where you don't need to, so if you
Correct.
don't want to, you don't
Yeah.
have to, but it is just a procedural
It's
thing.
at your discretion.
Yeah.
My discretion is to pass it on. Oh, does
So you will
everyone?
be happy to
does-
know, Steve, that they changed the orientation of the house and a large portion of that hill was going to remain.
Oh, good. All right. So that, okay, very good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was significant.
Sure.
I guess we don't need to vote on that then, right?
No.
On the signature.
No, I
yeah.
just have to sign it.
Yep.
Okay, we have 2 other tree removals. It feels like it's much later than 9 o'clock, but
Yeah.
so you know we're here till like 11:40.
Well, I heard. Yeah, I was pretty happy that I missed that one.
Yeah.
Not for the reason, but at least.
266 Big Alum. This is a dead oak. I went out there. It's obviously dead.
That looks dead to
like
me.
130 feet from the water.
I think I'm good.
And this project had some old letter permits associated with it, like an RDA, and he had taken a few trees down, done a bunch of plantings. So he had a lot of plantings on his property and stuff. So he did meet those conditions from those previous ones. So it was.
All in
just like-
favor? All right, it's approved.
Yeah.
Oh. Don't forget your phone
Just
boards.
wanted to see us again, huh?
Take care, Phil. Mr. Moreau.
216 Hemlock Path. This is just a quick little sketch. Big Alum's over here. This is a small camp. Hemlock Path goes through here. There's a little wetland over here. These are hemlock trees. I did go out there. We did approve one tree on this site this past summer. There's a local resident who kind of oversees the property for the gentleman. He lives St. Croix, was that the island? Yeah, St. Croix. So he was up and he actually, there's some other trees out here that, hemlocks on Hemlock Path that are either dead or declining that he'd like to have taken down. So we had done one earlier this year. I went back out, so there's a few different trees here. So they do have ribbons on it. It's hard to tell in these photos. It's easier, I guess, when you're out there, but
Yeah.
this front one, not fully dead, but on its way out. There's a clump, that's also the bottom of that tree there.
Yep.
Sorry. This is a clump of 3, same thing, very thin, appears it's on its way out.
Yep.
Is that a candidate for replacement? It looks like it's kind of an
Well,
open area.
Yeah, I'll show you. Then there's this one here. This one still has a lot up on top here. It's very thin underneath.
Uh-huh.
It's still, over 50 feet or so away from the water. There is a tree line there. I just want to show you the other one. So then,
Yeah, that one's obviously done.
right here, yeah, there's this one, and there's a couple over here on the other side of the road that aren't of concern. Let me just go. So then here's the one, and here's the 3. The clump here, the 3 are pretty dead. So there's a total of 8. I'll go back to the little sketch here. So remember the lakes here. This is the big one that's pretty much on its way out. This one had a little bit up on top, very thin. These are dead, and these ones are dead. So, the only one that wasn't clearly visible dead was this one over here.
So he owns across the road?
Yes, yeah, it's a private
the
road.
wetland? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want me to show you an aerial of this
No,
area? or
I don't.
So why does he want the one that's not dead taken down?
This one here, I think because it's declining.
Oh, okay.
So he was in town, he came in, he dropped this off. I went out there, I noticed that one. I contacted the local resident. I said, I think they might want a little bit more information about that tree. They contacted Tom Chamberlain, he's the arborist this person has used before, but he's out of town, so they weren't able to get something for this meeting for that one tree. I don't know. The likeliness of its survival being a hemlock with the woolly delgid, and if it's
Yeah.
treatable or not, or,
It
you know.
looked like it was distressed to some degree in the
Yeah,
picture,
I
so.
agree.
Yeah, I agree. Distressed, not dead, but dying.
Do we have any other comments? All in favor? All right.
I'm distressed, but not dying.
Aren't we all?
In case you're guessing, all
Maybe I am
What?
dying.
in case you're guessing, it was unanimous.
I got it.
Okay, we have 2 forest cutting plans. So, Steve, Linda, we brought Linda the intern with us. We went out on a site visit. We actually were able to coordinate it with Chris Capone from DCR. He's the service forester. So we went out on site. These are two forest cutting plans on Podunk, 2 different property owners, 176 Podunk and 177. The same forester at Scott Garish. He did the forest cutting plan for the Manoyas adjacent. I think he submitted these plans with the intent that the same forester will probably do the work and try to do it soon.
Yep.
He did disclose that he hadn't, he planned on marking the trees, but he hadn't marked them yet. So we went out there with Chris, there was a few outstanding things that Chris needed before he would, he needed a revised plan. Property boundaries weren't marked yet. Some of the crossings weren't flagged, things like that, that procedurally he needed some clarification. He had marked it as that he was marking cut trees, but they weren't marked yet, so he had him change it to other, and then he can change it later. Small things like that. So the cut is, it's a thin cut, and he did it by other, so it's a percentage. Both of them cutting 30%, leaving 70%. So after we had our site visit, Chris Capone reached out to the forester who drafted the plan, got the revisions done. They just sent those in on Friday. So Steve and I were going to present tonight our summary of when we went out there. I wasn't anticipating that a revised plan would come in, so he actually approved the plan based off of his revisions. So most of the things I think on both properties feel comfortable with, that he's now marked these things and made the revisions. There's a couple big things on both properties, so I kind of bring those up individually. I'll just show you the plans real quick. That, I mean, they're things that DCR isn't necessarily concerned with because he's providing a protocol to do them and it's approvable, but a couple of things that, I mean, it's just a question if he could do something, it could, you know, not have an impact on resource area. I mean, it could be avoided and be a benefit.
Is this 177?
No.
This one,
It's 176.
yeah, 176. This is the Buell property.
Okay. So
Okay.
this has been done maybe 50 times in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Yes, existing skid roads out there for most of the site. So the area of concern is, oh, my head's in the way. So this area here, which they're doing a harvest in a wetland, and they have a wetland crossing here. So we have an existing driveway that comes in and comes back here. This is really steep coming down. So we got a pond here, wetland here. I mean, they are allowed to harvest in wetlands, which is fine. You do it with dry or frozen conditions, usually fine. But they're using this as their main access way up, and they will be pulling logs out through this skid road. So the skid road will be actually in the wetland.
So they're using a skidder in a wetland?
Well, it's the skid road, but this forester actually drags the logs out.
Right, they're planning on dragging the logs,
Right. So
and we don't like that.
Chris had him revise it and say that they'd put down corduroy and poles to be used to protect the wetland, spreading ground pressure and minimize rutting. But when we were out there, it was really like lots of big boulders and
It's a terrible
I
place.
think it'd be really hard to go through there. And there's power lines
Yes.
that Chris had concerns with too. And then it wasn't reflected in his plan about the power lines because he actually thought they were going to need to be lifted. So when we were out there with Chris, we're like, well, I mean, it would seem to make sense that they use the existing driveway that crosses the wetland. Obviously, they can still go in and harvest the wetland, pull a couple trees out, however they do it.
Right.
But this is really steep coming down, and we see on the Manoia one, we kind of had that issue where it was really steep going down. There was an existing crossing culvert there, a little bit different than this situation, and there was a concern about erosion issues, and you know, Chris said it looks okay for DCR, but I think they probably could have done a better job maybe. And I think there's some concern for the wetland here, so.
So what are they trying to access? They're trying to access back here, is that?
Yeah, so it looks like they come in from the driveway. This would be their landing right here, which is upland, and then they drive back here with the equipment to access the whole property site for work. So everything would be coming out through the wetland. But there's an open area right here that, you know, maybe they could make that the landing and then just have the truck come and load it and pull them out this way and use the driveway. It would seem that the existing driveway would make sense.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
reach out to the Fuels to find out if they're?
Not to them. I did call Scott Garish yesterday because I just got this in on Friday afternoon. He sent the approved plan.
Yep.
And I did let him know, that we had, actually, no, I called him today, that we got the approved plans from Chris, that we went out there, and that, a couple questions about, especially about this one, if maybe they could use the existing driveway. I think that based off of Steve's concerns and what we discussed in the field, that the commission might have some concern on that, but it could easily be addressed by maybe using the existing driveway. But I think they're gonna have a question and concern about that, so.
Yeah, they could still have this be the landing. They would just be,
Or drag them, yeah.
right, they would
Yeah.
just be bringing the logs down here. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Or, as Becky mentioned, and you might have missed it, have the landing here, and then that way nothing's drug
Well,
and ruining that driveway.
And I guess they could have.
Just a possibility.
yeah, we leave it up to them, but
Yeah.
that's really close to their
But
house.
you would not believe what a hardship they're making for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Boulders, half the size, I mean, it's like enormous.
I've been
and
in
Looks
there,
like it's
so,
size.
yeah. I know.
Really, really bad news. And it's a wetland.
Yeah.
It seems like that could be an easy modification that would not result in maybe an unintended impact to the wetland that they might have to restore afterwards or something. So
Right.
trying to find a way to make it so that way they don't have an
Make-
issue down the road.
Let's, so who's gonna reach out to them to?
I'm
see?
waiting to hear back. I left him a message. I didn't
Okay.
call the property owner. I usually just call the forester, but I guess I could ask them
No,
too.
leave it to Gary, she'll take
Yeah.
care of it.
Okay.
I guess the question that Becky and I had was, do we demand that they do the driveway, or do we suggest it? And we never did. We met and talked about this morning.
Well, I think we make it clear that they're gonna have to do significant restoration work if they choose to you do the wetland crossing, right?
I actually think that what we've done in the past with situations like this is the guys in the field, the liaison person, makes a very strong suggestion that that would be a good idea and it would easily pass the meeting. Whereas other ideas might have a much harder road
Yeah.
to get passage
Right.
at the meeting.
Yeah, and all three of us agreed that that was a poor idea in the field.
Yeah.
And we said, we got this beautiful driveway here, which could just be,
I can understand what they're doing though about having the location for collecting the lumber at the end, because what they're carrying down that roadway is nowhere near what they're carrying down Lad Road. I'm sorry, down Podunk Road.
right.
Because they will back up an 18-wheeler and stack that sucker. So that you're talking about easily 50 to 60 full-length logs. You don't want them to back that sucker down that driveway and load those logs on and then have them come back up that driveway.
So,
Well, yeah, they could pull them then.
That'll destroy the driveway.
Becky, did you make the suggestion that they could either use this as the landing zone or they could continue to use this as the landing zone? but-
I just said that we were concerned with having a skid road in the wetland there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I
that
think
they could
that's a
use
really
the
good
driveway.
concern.
So, I can make that suggestion. I don't think I left it in my
Yeah,
long rambling message.
I think you should. Is that
Okay.
everyone in agreement with that?
So,
All right.
so, at this point, DCR's approved the plan. I don't think DCR would have any issue with the move to the driveway.
Right.
He will have to go in front of the Board of Selectmen, so that's when we provide our
Yeah.
memo, and that's when, you'd like me to provide those comments.
Scott also understands strong suggestions.
He's a realist, he's from Brimfield.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but otherwise, you know, it's all existing skid roads back there. It was actually kind of neat. We saw like the forester in the 80s had metal tags in the trees that said what they were and the size they were at that time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of neat. You know, now we
1985,
GPS
wasn't
it
it?
and, you know.
I think it was 1985
Yeah,
that
I
they
think
put
so
those
too.
on
Yeah, it
there.
was kind of neat.
They have won a tree award, Buell has won a tree award
Oh, yeah, it's got
probably 30 times in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
It's a nice looking site.
That, the markings that they were doing, you said 30% cut, so it's a minimum cut? But
Yes.
what was the percentage cut in the wetlands? Did they go up to the boundary of 50%? 50% basal?
Well, it doesn't say. It says all stands, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is the wetland. All stands were 30% cut, 70 left.
Okay, so they're not pushing it at all.
Yeah,
Nope.
that's good.
No, right. So then the next one, which is the super knot at
And that's been done for
177.
year after year
Yep,
also.
yep. This one has an existing crossing. There's a culvert. He had it as a stream crossing. It's not a stream. There is a culvert. So we changed it to a wetland crossing. So when we went out there, you can see like the concrete old culvert's actually like broken, or it's two pieces together. There's actually a gap there. So there's a lot of concern about impact to that. So there's one thing that Chris added that, you know, we had concerns with too, is that there would be actually a wetland crossing there. And he's requested that, that's this one. Existing roadway across wetland, roadway has existing culvert. Mats will be used to protect culvert and crossing structure. So you actually said mats there, which is what we would like, and it's actually about 75 feet, I think.
I think you said 75 feet.
Yep, 75 feet.
The
which-
soil over that concrete pipe is about that thick.
Right, and
That's nothing.
No, and it's already, it's like there's this big gap. It would just break as
Yeah.
soon as you drove across it.
and the whole thing was a wetland that was probably filled at one point, so it's pretty damp and, you know, very easily subject to erosion there, so, I was glad that he said mats, because that's what we would be looking for there, so with that inclusion, which was a change from the original plan, we didn't see any concerns. This is also a
30% cut.
Yep, 30% cut for all stands. And right, he's gonna go out and, or has gone out and marked the boundaries and stuff and the crossings and things that weren't marked in the field, so.
Yeah, it was all good.
So with that condition,
Well, it's already been conditioned on,
okay.
the plan,
Super
but
knot.
for super knots, when I write that letter, I would emphasize that we had a concern there. It was revised to include that. It's very important that,
Get it. No.
exactly.
Okay. So we don't have any other action we
Don't
need to do
think
that? Okay.
Oh, and just before I forget, and I apologize because we didn't do it when we had the discussion here, but the enforcement order that we issued to 158 Lake Road, so I issued that on your behalf. Afterwards, it does need to be ratified at a public meeting, so we should ratify it. We should have done it when we had that discussion. It is on our agenda. I think we can ratify it now. I think that's fine.
Okay.
But I would ask that it's ratified.
All in favor?
Same thing for 30 River Road, wasn't an enforcement order, but it was a cease and desist that I was instructed to order, so I think that needs to be ratified
Yep.
as well.
All in favor?
All right. Okay, emergency authorization. Route 84 eastbound, there was a diesel fuel spill. This was reported to us immediately by DEP. DEP was on site immediately with their cleanup crew, and then this was a UPS truck, so then UPS immediately hired an LSP who went on site that same day and started doing restoration activities. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my file here. Well, I don't know where I put it, but Holly made me all these nice tabs, and now No, I mean, you may be nice tabs, but I don't know where I put it. All right, I can't find it there, but, so they've been doing remediation activities, diesel fuel, the truck did crash right adjacent to the wetland, so they did immediately begin, they put oil booms out there and did some, excavation activity. I did speak to the licensed site professional person the next day after it happened. So right when it immediately happened, I did contact Ed, gave him the details. We issued the emergency authorization to cover them while they do their immediate response actions ordered by DEP. So they have a 60-day emergency authorization from us right now. I did go out on a site visit on there with them on Friday. It is in the median on Route 84, so it's limited access. You have to get like police detail to go out there. I did ask after, my first conversation with the licensed site professional to give us a summary of what they're doing and how they're moving forward with, exploratory stuff, little test pits for, fuel, et cetera, what they have in place, who's going to be kind of checking on those things and looking at, there's a culvert right there that goes across to a wetland on the other side. So when I went out there, we kind of, re-went over everything. So actually when the release happened, there was the standing water there now, and I can show you the photo. There wasn't any at the time, so they're pretty confident that nothing entered the culvert to get to the other side when it happened, and they got the booms in place right away. I did ask them, though, to go, after I left them, to go over there and just kind of do some sampling so we can be sure that, that leads to Lead Mine Brook, nothing's happening over there. But sounds like they should be confident, and if not, they're doing the, kind of augering over there to see, too.
Did they give you
Soil
results
samples.
of their test on the other side of the road?
This was just on Friday, so no. So we discussed some kind of options on how to move forward because they do believe there's still some contamination immediately adjacent to the wetland. And there's a lot of, issues with kind of trying to do hand augering or hand removal of some large boulders in there. So they wanted to bring a small excavator back down and kind of excavate and just take that out of there. They're hitting a lot of rock when they're augering for soil samples and stuff. So based off of, what we discussed and how we described it, it seemed like it was best to go back in and remove that upland soil adjacent to the resource area because it probably is likely contaminated based off their results. I had some additional questions that, just to make sure that any contamination isn't spreading because the resource area kind of wraps around the side. So they're going to do some more augering and get those soil results. But I did ask too, they had a wetland scientist on staff. They do. I think it's important that that person kind of comes out and kind of helps guide the efforts too, because then we will be looking at some type of restoration because there's, resource area impact there. But we can cover that moving forward with like a notice of intent down the road because there will, it's an actual wetland restoration.
Right.
How big do you think the impact area is going to end up being? 100 by 200?
I don't think it's that big. I mean, I don't
'Cause it
know
did
how
spread.
far it did spread into the wetlands, so that's gonna, we'll find out as they continue to do,
Do they have an estimate for the amount of gallons that was?
Released, it was less than 100 gallons. And I'm sorry, I don't know where I put my file. I thought I,
Did it get into the wetland, you're saying? Was it like a sheen on the water,
yes,
in the wetland?
yes, yep.
That's bad.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
bad.
So,
Did they put absorbent booms then in the wetland?
yes, and they're still there today. They immediately put them in. When DEP response team got there, they immediately put them in.
So that'll collect
Now-
some of it, but.
I think that, I think that what's in the wetland now has migrated into the wetland. I don't think it actually spilled directly into it. So I think it's what's migrated from that upland area into it,
So getting that soil out of there quickly is probably a good idea.
Yeah, and I said, I think that in everyone's interest, it's the best interest to move forward with that.
Right.
And I asked when that would happen, and fortunately, because of the requirement of the police detail and Mass DOT access, probably looking at within the next couple of weeks they get back out there. So they can't get back out there that quickly to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's not good.
So, I think that with what they have in place,
What are they gonna do with the water that's contaminated?
Well, they did-
Darn thing.
Yeah.
well, nothing right now. I mean,
Well,
they
they
have
should.
the booms in there, so they're absorbing it.
Right.
They should take their absorbent pads that you just, because the
Put
stuff's
down
on the
there.
surface, you just
Right.
throw them, you know, they're that big.
And
you
it soaks
throw
it
'em
up.
on.
Yep.
Luckily, I never had to use those.
So he's supposed to get back to me with some additional information after our site visit. You know, I said, right, time's of the essence. I think
Yep.
you move forward with that proposal. It seems to make sense. Get your wetland consultant, scientist person out here ASAP and really look at the area and what needs
And
to
it
get
should be,
done.
the work that they do should be supervised by a wetland specialist, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, you're right.
Whether it's their own
Oh,
or
yeah.
someone that we have.
Yeah. So.
They do have one on staff, don't they, Becky?
That's what he told me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that
It's
needs to
like
be.
rural environmental or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's the company that, the trucking company is the one that's gonna take care of this, and they're gonna,
They have to hire a licensed site professional.
right?
So when I was out there with the guy, he's saying that he's, you know, almost like an agent for DEP, right? He reports to them, he gets his licensure from them. So if he doesn't do a good job and misses things, he, you know, gets penalized in a sense. So he does work for them directly, but he, I wouldn't say that he wouldn't give the correct information because he's getting paid, but, you know what I mean? I think that it's fine, that's the process, it's set up by DEP, that's what is happening on other sites like 53 Karen Road too, so.
So do we need to ratify anything, or are we?
I don't think we have to for emergency authorizations, but
Okay.
No,
I don't have my regs with me.
No,
I
ma'am.
don't think we've ever done it for emergency ones.
Okay.
But I wanted to give you that update because I did have to issue that after our last meeting.
We have to ratify it if there's a cease and desist that's issued, but we don't have to for an emergency situation.
Okay.
Just so you know, for the other one, we have 53 Karen Road. They're still working out there. They're starting to see less return. I have an email summary from him from last week. So they think they're making good progress out there, but they're still in recovery mode out there. So they're still working on it.
They're still absorbing more material?
They're still, yeah, because they have like that pump going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're seeing less on their return. I think that's the term he used.
Okay.
It was just a quick summary, but they're still working out there, and they're still covered by their emergency authorization, so.
All right.
Yeah.
How about that one?
Hamilton Rod and Gun Club. I went out there last week. Ongoing.
How close to January are they?
So, let's start with this one. All right, so this is the view up the rifle range. So, you can't see over here, but these all slopes have been grading. I remember it was almost pretty vertical throughout there. So here's the first basin, which has been roughed in. I talked to him a lot about that. The other basin's over here.
Yep.
And then the other one's way in the back here, and that's the one where they were thinking about moving it. They had some big boulders, but they left it where it was. They've made some modifications to the one back here. It actually had a pipe for overflow, and now they just have it like riprap overflow, which I think it's better if it doesn't have a pipe. But they've made some field modifications that I've suggested that I think that they need to have the surveyor come out and make sure they did things correctly, you know, or, you know, inverts of pipes and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, that needs to be confirmed, and you'd want to see that. This berm is still here, which isn't stable. They put some
Stabilized.
seeds on it. So this berm, so when I was there with Jonathan from Ramco, he was saying that this berm wasn't in their original contract, which is not the, I think, the understanding that the gun club had. And this is what we have that filing for. They're gonna remove this. I think this basin maybe was supposed to be a little bit bigger once this was gone. Ramco is having their contractor Bond come out here and see if they do want to remove it. Rod and Gun Club wants it removed. I think it was their understanding that it would be done.
Right.
That's what they filed that permit for. We have the enforcement order for the violation issue here. I said, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whose responsibility it is to take it out. If it's, you know, if it's part of the reason that's impacting the resource area, then someone's got to stabilize it and do something with it.
Right.
But
It either
if
needs to be removed or it needs to be stabilized immediately.
well, they had seed on it, so everything had seed on it. They spray seeded, not hydro seeding. So when I was out there, there's all these swales, there's a lot of sediment coming down. I said, I really think
Yeah.
because of time of year, you need to hydro seed it because you're getting a lot of sediment washed out of here too. I said, at least the swales, but I'm like, I would just do the whole thing because
Right.
you're gonna spray seed it, that's gonna wash out, ruin your hydro seed. Just, I would recommend hydro seeding the whole thing due to time of year. I said, we have a lot of sediment in here that, you know, probably need to have come out, so that way the basin we know is gonna function correctly or whatnot. And he said, you know, they could come out in the spring maybe and they could, you know, modify, do whatever they need to do there, and we can work out that with them if you're comfortable with waiting on spring on that
Well,
aspect
Becky,
of
if
it.
they hydroseed, you have to make sure that they use the tactifier also, because without that, it doesn't stick during a rainstorm. And there's a slight upcharge for the tactifier.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty steep slope too. So
That's a bad
gonna-
slope.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, right, you can see where some grass is growing, but, you know.
That's
I mean, it's
insignificant.
I see a
amazing.
lot, I see a lot of bare soil
Yeah.
is what I see.
It's, I wish I had some photos of what it looked like
Yeah.
back there. I know I have some from the winter, just kind of looking in, but I mean, they got a lot done. Like I said, there's a couple questions that it was done per plan, or at least that it functions per what the plan was intended, and I think the engineer that designed it kind of needs to say that. It's not up to us.
Right.
I don't know what's gonna happen with this bank. Like I said, they had seeded it. I think he's planning on seeding it again if it's not gonna be taken out. I think the gun club's upset. They want that taken out. I don't know how that works in with our enforcement order or not. If that's within our abilities here. So now I went back up on the top part, because when I was there before, one of the gentlemen was there, was saying there's some kind of runoff issues that are coming down the Rifle Road. So there's some exposed areas that were left up here. I did send, so there's runoff coming down through here, getting onto the road. And there's some runoff coming over where the riprap is here. So after I got back from my, see this?
Oh.
Yeah, which is gonna take out that slope probably. So I
Yeah.
did send an email to Jonathan and copied the Rod and Gun Club on it. I said, this area really probably should be addressed immediately, whoever's
Right.
supposed to do it, I don't know, but it should be included because I think it's gonna impact the rest of the area.
Yep.
And it's causing some, you know, significant problems going down the Rifle Road, which is part of the enforcement order. But I'm like, I think it's an easy fix probably, and here's maybe some
Right.
suggestions that you guys can work out and implement. So hopefully they can get that done. All I think they really need to do is move some of that loam around, and maybe they have extra trap rock down there, bring it up. So also now that I'm thinking about it, I mentioned rock, they're gonna put some crushed stone on the driveway coming out of there too.
So your suggestion is to put rock in here and loam this,
Yeah.
okay?
And
'cause
maybe like a check dam in there, I
Yeah.
said too.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, you gotta slow that down, because
Yeah.
this right now, it's gonna blow out
oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had, what the guy was saying, he's like, we had a little berm here that's not here anymore. So that was kind of not allowing water to come down. So I'm like, this all needs to get seeded here, but then maybe having something that directed water to this little stone swale down to the detention might be a benefit too. We're not gonna wash out the road. So I made some suggestions that I think said we'd like to see implemented.
Yeah, as far as removal of that, that large pile.
Oh, yeah.
The berm.
Yeah,
This?
that's a big berm, but
Mount Everest.
I don't think we have any authority to enforce the removal of it unless that was
Impacted.
specified in the, well, unless it was specified in the plan that we approved.
Well,
For
they
the-
had, I believe they had it shown on their plan they presented to us. Remember they filed
Yeah.
for this?
Well,
That
so-
was part of it,
It was shown as to be removed.
as part of that plan.
Well, then
Yes.
we have,
There you go.
yeah, we have the jurisdiction to.
Well, so that was the notice of intent that was filed.
Yeah.
And then we had the enforcement order separate.
Yeah, but in the NOI that we
Yeah.
approved, it was stated that that was to be removed, or was shown that that was removed.
Yes, they were
Because,
asking for it, yep.
yeah, because this, otherwise, that's not gonna function the way
Right.
that we expected. So, yeah,
Okay.
I think we make
need
that
to
part of
double
the
check to make sure that it is part of the original
NOI. Yeah.
NOI.
Well, right, it's shown on the plan to come out.
Okay.
And I didn't think
If
about
it-
it when I was on site, but I
Yeah.
think that this basin's supposed to be bigger.
Right. That's my
Okay.
memory too.
Yeah.
So if it is in the plan, then they need to
Okay.
take it out.
Okay.
And then, don't worry about seating it, just remove it.
Okay. I'll let him know. And I think, I mean, these large trees are on the backside here. When I was out there with Jonathan, he's like, well, you know, they were supposed to remove the trees first. No one's removed the trees on the backside of the berm.
Are they actually on the slope here? They look like they're further back.
Yes, I believe, I can look at some old photos that I might have coming this way, but I do believe they are maybe on the bottom of the slope. I don't remember exactly, but they would need to come out. Let's see.
So there's no way to remove the,
What is the harm if they get it solidified, if they get it with a tackifier and spray grass?
well, I think the harm is that basin isn't sized the way it was supposed to be with that removed. I think that's the problem. And what does that do to the efficacy of that basin?
Yeah, it may
if
ruin
it's-
the basin, right.
It looks like it's filling up anyway.
Right. Well, that and it's, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything that shows over there, but I'm pretty sure those have to come out when they take that down. And that was all approved.
Yeah, all right, I didn't remember that part. I didn't remember the trees coming out, but. All right.
Yes.
So what action do we need to take on that?
Well, I don't know that you have to take in action, but I said I would report what I, found out there, and I didn't know what, with that berm, what would happen. So here's the basin.
Yep.
This whole area would get regraded, so all of this and this one would come out too. And it was going over here, so.
They have to do it according to the plan.
Yeah, it has to be done according to
Yeah.
the plan.
Yeah, and I can just say too, obviously, upon review of it afterwards, that.
Isn't that part of the
basin is
contract
fairly-
with Ramco?
Well, that's what, Ramco's saying no, and the gun club's saying yes. I mean, the town hasn't issued earth removal permit for it, and I believe this is the plan that they approved too. So I'm like, I don't know how that would stand with the town, but,
Yeah.
so I will.
The bottom line is, that's what we approved, that's what they need to do, so.
Yeah, all right. Getting there.
Yeah, we're almost at the bottom of Becky's sheet. She has no more room to write notes.
So just as an update for the Lad Road project, the last meeting we discussed sending that letter. Wanted to let you know that we did send that letter out as discussed. I did have town council help draft that, did have Ed look at it before going out. But right as we're getting ready to issue this letter, which we still issued with some revisions, we received a request for determination of applicability from 508 International for 27 Lad Road, which will be on our next agenda. So the.
Indicating that the property is within Sturbridge?
Well, it just says, I request the Conservation Commission make the following determination. Usually we write Sturbridge there, but it does say that it's asking if the work is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, or ask if it's subject to jurisdiction of any municipal wetland ordinance or bylaw of the town of Sturbridge. The filing is for the area description near Sturbridge Charlton Town Line. Existing trail from Charlton side opens to a field, 40-foot telephone bridge crossing on trail just before entering the field. What the work description is my understanding was that he wasn't to submit an RDA for the work he completed. This says it's to replace a 10-foot section of decking on a 40-foot by 6-foot telephone bridge The 10-foot section is currently covered by plywood. We propose to replace the plywood oak planks that match the existing oak planks on 30 feet of the bridge. Oak planks will be fastened to the telephone poles. Installer will remain on the existing bridge for the duration of the installation. So this is for work they are now proposing to do.
Yeah,
I went
but-
back to look at the photos, but.
It's an illegal bridge.
So our letter we sent out had the same language, but then we also put in that, we added that, you know, as requested by the 508 international representatives at our July 16th meeting, we provided them with the opportunity to submit an RDA to be discussed at the August 20th meeting. An application was not received and no representatives attended the meeting. At that meeting, the commission determined to provide you with 1 week as stated in this letter, already stated previously. On August 29th, an RDA was hand-delivered to the Conservation Department. This late application will be added to one of our agendas. However, you may not conduct any activities within jurisdictional areas in the property without either a negative determination of applicability or orders or conditions allowing such activities. Accordingly, failure to cease and desist such activities may result in further enforcement action. So that was kind of assisted, the town council kind of assisted drafting some of that language.
So de facto, they're saying that that bridge is in fact in Sturbridge.
Right, and they're saying it's existing, and they're asking to do some additional work to it, is my understanding. But, you know, the letter we sent, which went out on August 30th, it says kind of what we discussed, you know, that the orders outlined in the enforcement order have not been addressed, and the 60-day appeal period has passed. As it's passed, it's their obligation to comply with the enforcement order. Sturbridge Conservation Commission has elected to provide you with an additional week from issuance of this letter to comply with it. If you do not comply with the enforcement order by September 6th, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will refer this matter to KP Law, the town of Sturbridge's legal counsel, to file a lawsuit seeking compliance with the enforcement order. So that's our next step now. I mean, they submitted an RGA. We have it on our agenda for what they asked for. We'll set up site visit to go out there. We can look at it and move forward. So. But I don't think we need to discuss the RDA at this point in time. I just wanted to inform you what's kind of happened because we talked about the issuance of that letter based off town council recommendations and what kind of happened after that, so.
Okay.
All right, so my last item on here is something that I talked to Ed about, and I asked him if he didn't want me to include it because he wasn't here, and he said he was fine with having it on here. But it's regarding like administrative review. So for some minor things, some conservation commissions allow the agent to do an administrative review. So some of like these just dead trees, which are clearly dead trees, some towns will allow their agents to just okay that so people don't have to wait a month for a meeting or something of that nature. So, I mean, it's a lot more work for us, you know, with people like, okay, we're going to schedule a site visit now, and usually I go by myself, but sometimes I have to bring you guys if it's more than what I think it's going to be or not. Put it on the meeting. Sometimes they want to come. We don't know what, have a time frame for them, and usually it's something that a dead tree is approved. So I was hoping that maybe you could have some discussion about approving for a trial period to see how it works out, allowing the administrative review of dead trees, so that way it kind of helps expedite that process, and it'd be less office work for us too when it's something that.
But that's how it used to be. It used to be that the agent went out for dead trees, and only when there was a question about a live tree that we didn't want the agent to do it, we wanted to have a certified arborist do it. That got us out of the business of having to determine whether a tree is alive or dead.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
So I don't think any of us will have a problem with that administrative review part.
Right, so I mean, it wouldn't be on our meeting agenda, but maybe
No.
there's some way I can provide in my agent report or something that, look, there was these 4 sites that I went out and.
You should have the yes and no.
I don't know that that's even necessary if
Yeah, I don't-
if they're dead and, you know, that seems like a poor use
Well,
of time.
we do, don't we want some kind of record, though?
But she would keep the record.
Yeah, I would still.
Everything would be public record.
Right, I would still issue a letter permit for it, so it would still get like a letter permit number, but would you want me to report it to you?
I mean, because right now, the agent report, if you want to just include it in the agent report, during the meetings, that's fine, or just maybe have a section on the agenda that just lists
Administrative reviews
administrative
completed.
review or something.
I'm trying to find the reason for doing that, and I can't think of one, as to
So you
why
just-
we would
Well,
care
there is-
about a dead tree
There is a
being
good
cut
reason.
down.
If, let's say, you get permission to take down a dead tree on your property.
Okay.
Nobody knows that. But your next door neighbor comes into Becky or bumps into one of us in the grocery store and says, who the hell gave you permission to take that tree down?
She has a letter in the file. Somebody comes in,
Right, but if you make it part of the public and you make it part of the agenda, or you so indicate someplace.
Do you think, I mean, just adding a section that says items for administrative review or whatever, and just, I
That
mean, we could.
that have been reviewed and added on the agenda, I think that's fine.
Because that gets published.
Right.
I just think I would feel more comfortable about having this stuff
well, I was
in
thinking.
a document.
Right.
It's a public
agenda.
document, yeah, like a public
Okay.
agenda.
And I think because this would just be a policy, and maybe the next reg review, you can say in there that we'll have policies for certain things.
Yeah.
And until that time. But what I also thought might be useful to do, and, that way people know we've given approvals for certain things. So when I worked at Natural Heritage Program, like, that process isn't public. They don't notify abutters. We would post all of our determinations online so people knew that a determination was given. So sometimes when we have,
Yeah.
these small things, we could have those approvals kind of listed there.
Yeah.
I think, and that addresses the
Yeah.
the neighbor wondering what the heck's going on.
Right,
kind of
they could
thing.
easily find it there, and maybe we could, eventually educate
I
the
think
Lakes
that's a great
Association
idea.
that we
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
But also
I
leaves
can
the
understand that.
possibility open for Becky to be able to revive that tree and bring it back.
Yeah, right.
Well, and, yeah.
So,
I like that idea,
the
but
layout
just
of
putting it
hands.
online, in
So-
the interest of modernizing the way that we do business as a government, I think
Right.
this is archaic, that is
Right.
Yeah.
progressive.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's probably a better use of time and resources. Just put it online, make the declaration there, and then we don't have to put it on the paper agenda, it's already there.
Yeah,
All right, I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that.
that's good.
All in favor?
I try not to be a Luddite, but I
Okay,
fail.
so then also, now, and I put it in my notes, so we have minor projects that come in the outer buffer zone. So not talking about within 100 feet, which is still Wetlands Protection Act, and most of those things need an RDA to determine if it's a minor project or whatnot. In the outer buffer zone, like the 100 to 200 feet, we get a lot of people that come in for like an above-ground pool or a deck or something really small within their existing yard. And I want to see, so for those type of things, which are minor activities like deck, sheds, patios, pools, house additions, like small house additions, or we can talk about that, upland retaining walls, all within the 100 to 200 foot buffer zone, all within a yard, so they're not clearing anything. A lot of those things come in, like we had one where the person brought a building permit application in, and we were like, well, you still are subject to the local bylaw, and we have a meeting coming up, and gave them an application, and then they came in today, and they're like, oh, where's the meeting? Well, we didn't bring the application. You know what I mean? It's a really small thing that we're not gonna care about a deck that's 160 feet away, but we still would need to review it under our local bylaw, issue a permit, and maybe add some conditions, like if it's digging posts, if it's a above ground pool and they're moving soil, things like that, but it's all far from the wetland, which most have minimal conditions. And I wanted to see how you felt about allowing me to do those, or maybe a subset of those, decks, sheds, patios, above ground pools. I don't know, within that outer buffer zone, without that having to come to a meeting too. Maybe there's like I said, a subset of that maybe we try as a trial, and I bring them back and put them on agenda or whatever, and show you what, they don't require public hearing or a butter notification, legal advertisement. They do require approval at this point, but.
What the Wetland Protection Act specifically says is prior review and approval. So what you're suggesting is that that prior review be done by the agent as opposed to it being done by the commission?
But this is
But
only.
this is outside of the Wetland Protection Act, this is just the
Right,
local
right.
bylaw.
Yeah.
But he's just
correct.
using that as
Oh,
a-
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
the framework.
Yeah.
it's still the same framework.
Right,
It's prior review and approval
under our bylaws.
under our bylaw.
I wanted to pull together some examples of past ones that came in, but I just ran out of
Well,
time.
I mean, we had one on Clark Road, the guy, all he wanted to do was just mow his yard, that he just had left half of his yard go, and so it had weeds this high, and we all go out there, and he's like 180 feet away from the
Yeah.
wetland, from the lake, we're going, why are we here? Yes,
Yeah.
mow it.
Yeah.
So, and we had an addition on a house on Woodside, stuck out this much.
Right.
And we all went, and all of us were standing there looking at it, going,
Yeah. Well, we had that
why are we here?
40 Beach Ave, we had that little house edition, remember? It
Yes.
was in the 200, so it had to come in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. I would love to see that, where you have the authority. I mean,
The only thing I would say is we should probably put some, if it's a trial period and it's you, that's fine, we should probably put just some conditions in there for, whoever the conservation agent is needs to be approved by the conservation commissioners at the time, because if
Right.
there's some turnover in that position, we don't have a level of comfort, we want to make sure that
Yeah.
we're comfortable with the individual. But aside from that, I would say that if we have a level of comfort with the expertise of the agent,
Yep.
then that's completely, a smart place to find some efficiency.
So how do we define what, we need to put some
definitely.
parameters on this?
Yep. I would
So
We
say,
should just give that some thought. Maybe
Okay.
you have, maybe
Draft.
between,
Yeah, if you
just put a
could-
draft together between now and the next
Yeah.
meeting
Yeah.
that we can review. But,
Yeah.
if there was something in there that just basically, was blind, just doesn't talk you, talks conservation agent.
yeah,
and-
right,
and
yeah, I
that-
think we need a policy
Right.
in place, so.
Right.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we give it 3 months and ask for an indication at our January meeting as to how the past 3 months have gone relative to this? Because
And then ask for a policy?
Yeah,
Oh, I like that idea too.
because I would rather.
You're not putting in the next 3 months, are you, Becky?
I hope not.
You're on the
I'm
public
not planning on it.
Well, then, I would say we're okay with it.
And I also want to be cautious about codifying it, because once you codify it, you have difficulty in uncodifying it.
Sure.
And you might want to uncodify it with the next agent.
Well, I like Eric's point that it has to
Needs
be.
approval.
That agent needs specific approval from
Right.
us to
Right.
take these
To do it,
actions.
right.
And then I wonder why we would have hired that agent if we can't
Right,
trust him.
yeah.
Don't do the
Oh, but
hiring,
this,
that's
It's just-
everybody's under a provisional basis, so, right.
Yeah, there's something funny about it.
So you have enough.
Okay, do you want to do that for both the tree?
No,
Also, the tree,
the trees, I think.
Yeah, we're all in
Okay.
agreement with the dead trees.
okay, okay.
But the minor projects, I think that's a good idea to have so we let her do what she wants for the next 3 months, and then we decide
Right.
if that was appropriate.
And we gotta pass things like this tonight before Ed comes back.
Right, yeah.
He was okay with it.
All in favor?
Free eggs,
Sorry, I'm not speaking for you, Ed.
free eggs for a bribe.
Okay, so I'll develop a policy for that. I think I still should put something in writing about the dead trees, and then when we work on in the future regulation.
Yeah, because as you get more
changes,
experience in doing it,
Yep.
you'll come up with some shortcuts or some suggestions.
Or best practices from other
Give you a little bit
communities.
of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, it actually, right, so some of these I've seen other communities do, so that's kind of where the idea came from, so. All right, thank you.
God
Yeah, we
knows
appreciate that.
Potential experiences are very broad.
I have everything checked off, I guess, except for the agent report.
The what?
Agent, any additional?
Well, there's one piece of old news that I'd like to reaffirm. There was a question asked recently about any member or the agent going out and putting an enforcement order on a piece of property or on an activity on a site.
A cease and desist?
Yeah.
specifically? Yeah.
And so I pulled out the Wetland Protection Act Form 9 for the enforcement order, just so that everybody would know about it, because under the very last page, section D, it says, in a situation regarding immediate action, an enforcement order may be signed by a single member or the agent of the commission, and then ratified by a majority of the members at the next scheduled meeting.
Yep.
It does not need to be approved otherwise. It just has one member or the agent go out and.
I think that's what we've always done.
The question was asked.
Okay.
So.
Because you, somebody told you that you weren't right in doing that. When I heard that, I said, no, he's got the right to do that. You went out and did a cease and desist on your road. But
Not me.
Oh, not you.
Not me.
But anyway, it was, I thought that's a good thing.
So it's on the Wetland Protection Act, DEP file,
Yeah.
section 9.
Yeah, that's good. While we're kind of like looking at like reviewing and all that, this will be very quick. We have a few times sort of knew that it was okay to have certain activities within the 25-foot, and we've wrestled with it, but the bottom line would be it was zero impact. So a couple of times we've said, yeah, we would allow something we did the last meeting, something, a pervious something or another. So I went back and I looked at that 25-foot, and I just did it like really fast, read through it quickly. We can overturn that presumption for certain reasons. And might not be quite as easy as we thought, but I think that everybody should go back and read that and kind of get some level of comfort. A fast read was that we have the authority to say, if it's not having any impact at all, or then there was this whole thing that the lawyers like to write, if there's no, if it's like a hardship or something along those lines, that can be overturned. So anyway, just something to go back and take a look at that, because we've kind of wrestled with that.
Well, we do that with trees frequently the tree's within a few feet of the lake, but we allow them to cut it down because it's about to fall on there.
Right, I'm talking about other things that sort of like creep into that 25 feet. If it's
I go mental
zero,
about the 25, and wait until you read the buffer zone pamphlet that you just received tonight. There is a graphic in there that talks specifically about our buffer zones and says they're way undersized. They should be moved back.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that we all, because we've kind of wrestled with it as if we weren't really sure exactly, we should take a look at that.
Well, right, and I think when it's an existing yard, that's when you look at it different than if it's new impact. New impact, different story.
Yeah.
If it's.
Yeah, but on Lake Road, for example, we talked about a picnic area, concrete picnic area, 8 feet from the water line. Now, that's within the 25.
I don't think we allowed that.
No, it wasn't concrete.
You mean the patio?
Yeah, there was a patio area, but it
Long
wasn't
ass?
concrete.
Pervious patio.
It was a pervious patio, yeah.
We all know that a pervious patio is only pervious for the first year.
Right.
Because after that, the maintenance fails.
I don't know that I don't know that that's our job to project into the future when it comes to that. If somebody was to then not follow the advisement and break the law, then there's action that we can take, but, anyway.
Agent's report. Oh, she's all done.
Yep.
I found my emergency authorization stuff. It was sitting right here, so I'm not losing
Okay, good.
my mind in files. But
Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right.
Dave, is that the buffer manual I gave you yesterday, or is that one up here?